Is going on, faithful? That's right. What you've been waiting for pretty much since last February, Lorenzo, Neal. A Super Bowl rematch, the biggest regular season game of the season for the San Francisco 49ers as they get set to take on the Kansas City Chiefs. It's a very special kickoff show here live at the Hilton Santa Clara. 3 hours, 3.5 hours until 1:25. Just you and me and a lot of good times out here as everybody gets ready for what we're hoping can be the moment where the Niners eventually get over the hump.
I love it. I mean, man, we got 3.5 hours, so we got a lot of time to do a lot of goofing around and got a lot of time to talk some X's and O's. I'm excited, baby. It's football. I mean, look at the weather's great. Nice breeze. You hear the music out there. They're kicking it up. My man's got McCaffrey shirt on out here. The DJ. It is set. This is what you want. You know, this is it right before, Halloween. The weather's nice and crisp and brisk, and you're just thinking, my goodness, this is what I want to see. The Kansas City Chiefs that comes in at 5-0. The Niners have been kind of up and down, and we're like, hey, will the real Niners please stand up? Please stand up. And we get to see them Sunday right here at 1:25, 1:20 kickoff. I can't wait. My daddy used to tell me, son, if you can't get along, you might as well get it on. And today they're going to be getting it on, Big E.
And they got no choice. They got no choice because this is who the Niners have in front of them. It is the beast they have yet to slay. They have not beaten Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid regular or postseason, I should say. And that's really just been the thorn in the side of this franchise because you can make the argument that if not for the Kansas City Chiefs and if its and buts were candies and nuts,
come on,
we all know. But if this team was not in front of the Niners the way they have been, come February 11th last year, 2019 Super Bowl, the Niners would be the class of the entire football league, but they've been number 2. They've been the team that's been a little bit forgotten in history to this point because of what Patrick Mahomes has been able to do, which is win 3 Super Bowls in the last 4 seasons, and what Andy Reid has been able to do with him, which is just be better than the 49ers in the biggest moments. And so even though today is not a day, you can't right all the wrongs, you can't go back and take back all the Super Bowls, you're not going to get the rings back today, but what you can do, in my opinion, is at least find a way to take down a team that has been in your nightmares. To me, it is as much about a psychological victory as it is about you moving to 4-3.
No question, my guy, E. And here's the thing. If I told you Usain Bolt, right? You know who that is, right? And I said, who won the 100? You said, Usain Bolt. But I asked you a question. Who took second? Exactly. There you go. And that's what everyone said. Well, the Niners, man, they've been in the Super Bowl. Yeah, this, yeah. But you know what? But no one really remembers second place. It's about winning a title. It's about winning a championship. And that's what's at stake. Not a championship today, but this is for the psyche. I remember they had this boy down in Leemore. His name was Ruben. Oh, yeah. Oh, Ruben. Ruben, I remember him like yesterday. Oh, Ruben, one day he took my lunch money, and I was like, man, he took my lunch money. Little Spanish guy, and he could box, too. And Ruben, one day, I took Ruben down, wrestled him to the ground. I had him one time, so I said, okay, I got him. I got old Ruben. I'm telling you, Ruben came back the next day, me and Ruben, and he caught me off guard with a one piece. Boom, I'm in kindergarten. Oh, Ruben got me. And then, like a week later, I see Ruben, and I walk the other way. Ruben said, hey, come back over here, Lorenzo. Come back over here. I'm like, no, I don't really want to go. I knew I was stronger than him, and you think that you can beat him, and all of a sudden he called me again. So he wins 2, and I'm like, man, so now your mind starts to play tricks on you, especially if you let them get off early, especially if you let him get the first punch, especially if and he start to give him that confidence. That's why this game for me with the Niners, this is like that old Ruben game for me. Ruben got me a couple times now. You know what, the Niners, the Kansas City Chiefs got you a couple times. They're your Ruben, but you got to find a way to strike these guys and hit them hard and hit them first and let them know this is going to be all day, baby. No Ruben here today. No Ruben.
Maybe a couple Reuben sandwiches. They're serving hot slices left and right out here at the tailgate outside of the Hilton Santa Clara. It is a bump in time. Get in, get ready for what is going to be a heavyweight prize fight. 15 rounds between the defending Super Bowl champs and the teams that were the runner-up. This is the Super Bowl rematch. This is what many people had circled. I understand it's week 7. You got 17 games to play. But as far as regular season matchups go, this was the one that I had my eyes on the most because it's not so often that you get to number 1, play a team that has a chance to go and win a Super Bowl and that has done it 3 times, but also a chance to host them, to get them in front of the home crowd, to bring them into the building and see what you're made of. And the 49ers right now they've been playing the Jekyll and Hyde act all season. We don't know who they are yet, but this is a game in which I believe not only that they can go get, but they can use to establish what this season can become for them.
Didn't last year they come here and play, or the year before? In
2022, they got dog walked.
they got motorboated.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, Kansas City came in here in this stadium and just took them to the wood pile and just beat up on them. And then, so it's like, hey, look, revenge is always sweet. I don't care what people say. Oh, yeah, it's the last year. That game is then. And you know what? You can't think about that. Stop lying. I remember playing against them Rams, and I'm telling you right now, they took a Super Bowl from me, and you always think about those games. So, yeah, I know we're creatures of habit, and you have to understand, yes, you got to move and turn the page. I get all that. But you got to also just exercise those demons. You got to go ahead and show the world, not even the fans, but you owe it to yourself. Yeah, it's some new players on this team, but you owe it to yourself. I'm excited about this matchup. You look at what Kansas City's been able to do. They just find a way to win. They don't look necessarily dominant, but they found a way. You look at the Niners say, look, they don't look dominant, and at times they look great, and at times they don't look good. So, but they don't find a way. So you got two tails today. One team has been finding a way. The other team has been up and down, has played some good talent, played against a good team, Minnesota undefeated. So you've been in some battles. You've even had an opportunity right now. You have an opportunity. If you look at their schedule and you think about what they've been through, this team, we could be sitting here at 6-0. When you think about the games that they lost, the Rams had that game. You look at when they played Minnesota, had an opportunity to win that game. Some bad mistakes, some turnovers. Arizona, a team that you had dominating up by double digits in the fourth, and you didn't find a way. And then, you look at Seattle, you went out and you played well, but you almost lost it. You almost turned over, so you just got to put this game together today. I know we're going to get in X and O's. We got a long time, but it's just like, this is a great test for the Niners. It's a great test for Kansas City. Kansas City's looking at this and say, hey, look, guys, let's ride the ship. They know what the Niners want to do. They know the Niners looking for revenge. So it's just a game, E, that you look at and you're like, man, these are two teams that are very, very competitive, two teams that aren't playing great. One happens to be undefeated. The other is not undefeated. But neither one of these teams can say that they played their best football thus far.
I think that's a great point. That's something we've talked about so far during the kickoff shows is the Chiefs have found ways to win football games where the Niners so far have not. That doesn't mean the Niners can't get to where they want to go. But this is why I find this game so fascinating. Is it's one of the few where you can talk about the game within the game. The matchups within the big matchup, you're looking about, obviously, Kyle Shanahan versus Andy Reid, Brock Purdy versus Patrick Mahomes. Maybe it's Fred Warner versus Travis Kelce, George Kittle versus George Karlaftis. Like, there's so many battles within this specific game, and these teams are so familiar with each other. Right. Yes, there's some different faces, there's some different pieces. Spagnuolo, obviously the defensive coordinator for Kansas City, has given Brock Purdy and this Niners offense fits for the last few years, no matter who has been in the backfield on offense. So this is a game that, Niners are going to be missing McCaffrey.
Yeah.
The Kansas City Chiefs are missing some pieces of their own. Their stud wide receiver, Rashee Rice, is out for the season. So there are guys that are missing in this game, but the matchups within themselves, I don't know where I'm going to be putting my binoculars on the field. I don't know which guys I'm going to be watching.
Right. So much talent out there.
There's 11 players on each side. And it's basically going to be like 2 5-on-5 basketball games. Yeah. I don't know where my eyes are going to go.
No, it's going to be all over the place. You might, at the end of the game, you might be cross-eyed at hell. That's the kind of talent you'll see on the field. What did you think? Did you think this game was going to get flexed? Did you guys think this game was a flex game to, maybe move to Monday night or look at the 5 o'clock game? It's the Steelers, and the Jets. Is that what people want? I looked at this game and I'm like, man, is something going to move this game to a primetime spot? But no, they didn't. Were you shocked with that?
A little bit, but I'm also glad because it means that we get Tom Brady on this football game. We get the GOAT in the building. Kevin Burkhardt, the #1 Fox crew, of course, kicking off at 1:25. And this is a game that is drawing the best of the best. So, I was a little surprised that especially compared to, Jets and Steelers.
Right.
There's more of the toxic storylines going on with those football teams. Quarterback changes, trades, people unhappy, coaches getting fired. Here it's just about football. It's just about football at Levi Stadium today.
Yeah, no question. It's just about football. Were you surprised? I'm taking down this rabbit hole. Were you surprised with the Jets made a move on Robert Saleh? Was that something that did you see? I say that because we know the ties that he has with the Niners. Were you surprised?
Yes. Yeah, I was. And it's always interesting to me that coaches. Look, I understand you're the head coach. Your record is what it is. You get blamed no matter what happens. But it seemed to me like he got the short end of the stick and is basically falling on the sword for the failures of a front office and ownership group that has not been able to do anything in the last 10 years.
And that's what my point. You look at the Giants, had they, not played great, but they stayed with their coach. You look around the league and you're like, man, I'm just kind of shocked that Robert Saleh is a hell of a defensive coordinator coach, and you think, okay, you're going to give this guy some time. I'm just kind of shocked, like you, that they pulled the trigger that fast. You look at certain organizations, and that's give kudos to the Niners and their organization. You see how he now stepped back and said, okay, Yorkie, he said, hey, look, I'm going to take our time. We're going to let Cal do his thing. You don't see necessarily the front office meddling like they used to. Mm-hmm. You saw it, Dunn York, first with Harbaugh, and now look at the maturity from this young man to sit and say, could have panicked a couple years back. Cal Shanahan won 4 or 5 games. Could have said, hey, no, we got to go in a new direction. Never once put his name out there on the hot seat. They trust the process. Just kind of looking around the league, you look at this Jets organization and other organizations, especially when it comes to the Jets, just pulling the plug that fast on a pretty good coach.
Well, exactly. And I mean, even someone like Andy Reid, going back to his time in Philadelphia, had 8 10-win seasons in 14 years.
Right.
The last 2 were the ones that got him run out of the building. But obviously that looks like a premature move. And I know that, there might have been about the time to part ways. And obviously he got to Kansas City and they've been successful ever since. They've only had 1 season in which they have not won double-digit football games under him as head coach. But I agree with you. I just think that, look, it's a delicate dance between, all right, 3 seasons of ineptitude, you're moving into a 4th, you finally got your pieces together, but you need to win now. I just feel like, and actually this is something that you taught me, Lo, and have continued to teach me, 5 weeks in the NFL is not that long of a time. Now, I know you have to make choices based on a small sample size, and inevitably things are going to be done, but 5 games, this Niners team, for example, I think is going to be a completely different football team in week 10 than it is even now in week 7.
No question. I think that's a great point, E, that you're making. You look around and you say, okay, here's a team in the Jets that finally got their guy who's been out for pretty much 2 years. That's Aaron Rodgers, that is. And you think about coming back from Achilles, and all of a sudden now you're saying, okay, win now with a quarterback that has a year of rust. Seemed like they would have said, let's get through this year. Let's figure out what we're going to do. And now next year you're on the hot seat. I just think that sometimes these ownership and whatever happens, guys sometimes start to panic. They start to blink and they say, oh my goodness, let's make some moves. You and I, we talked heading several weeks ago when they were going to play, the Arizona. You said, well, I'll panic after this. And I said, and I told you I wouldn't necessarily panic because if they lose, it's going to come down to fundamentals, execution. They're not process. I said, so I still wouldn't necessarily panic, but I said, man, it just tells you, when are they going to make the effort? When are they going to have those changes? And tell this Niner team, I continue to say this and I'll say it again, until each individual says enough. That's the coaching staff. The coaches have to coach harder. Special teams coach have to coach harder, because until you continue to make mistakes on different phases of the game, you're going to continue to struggle, because right now it is what it is. Your team is not good enough to overcome many mistakes like the Niners have been able to do. And today is one of those games that you can't make. You have to make less mistakes than Kansas City. Oh, by the way, Kansas City will make some mistakes. Their quarterback, even though he's the best quarterback in the league, he will turn the ball over. Are you going to capitalize, and are you going to have less mistakes, win the turnover battles, if you want to win this game today?
Yeah, I think that the Niners and the Chiefs so far this season kind of are on polar opposite sides. Like, if you look at what the numbers say, the Niners have been a pretty damn efficient offense. Their defense hasn't been as bad as a lot of people have been led to believe, but situationally, they struggle.
Right.
Special teams, they've been terrible.
Horrible.
Even against Seattle.
Horrible.
They had the fumble on special teams that they got, but then they gave up a kickoff in the second half, and that nearly flipped the game. Now they were able to put it away, but still very dangerous spot, being up by 20 points. That game was eventually shrunk to a 1-score game. So the Chiefs, meanwhile, are a team that they're not high flying by any means.
No.
They're not scoring 30 points a game like they used to. Their point differential for a 5-0 team is one of the lowest in league history, and that just goes to show that they have been good when it counts, when it matters. And so that's my biggest question about this game, is when the Niners need to make a play, can they do it against the team that has continuously done it the best over the last, well, I would say over the last 6 or 7 years, really since Patrick Mahomes came in the league.
No question. Now they have the 12-round fights. Used to be 15. And they always say from 9 to 12, from round 9 to 12, they call those the championship rounds. And I'll tell you right now, the championship round for this San Francisco 49ers team this year has not been good. That's because you look about it. Hey, you looked at Floyd Mayweather, you saw he kept it close, okay, boom. But in those last couple rounds, he closed. Ray Leonard knew how to close. When you think about great fighters, they know how to close out games. And that's what we haven't seen from this Super Bowl hangover from this Niner team. They haven't shown the ability to close. That's what we need to see today. You watch Kansas City, you talked about it. They haven't been great. They keep everything, take everything even, fights even, going to the championship rounds, and then some kind of way, this Kansas City Chiefs says, you know what? It's championship round. It's time to close. It's time to put the women and kids to bed and win this game. And that's what they've been able to do. And the Niners haven't shown you that they have that killer instinct for the championship rounds. That's one of the things that I'm looking for again today.
Well, and again, if the Niners can find a way to slay this dragon that is Kansas City, I think that would also give them so much more confidence, even if they revert a little bit. Because, look, they've had some great weeks. They've had some really bad weeks. Again, we said this off the top. I still don't know exactly who the 2024 San Francisco 49ers are. But a win today, to me, means that you can look at any opponent. And, for example, Dallas is coming in next week. After the bye, we got Tampa Bay. You got 5 straight potential playoff teams after the bye, some very good football teams. Those are going to be tough games. A lot of games on the road. You might not win all those games. But even if you don't, if you have a game like this in your pocket, that's a level of play that you know that you can get to. And to be able to beat a team like Kansas City, whether they're 5-0, whether they're 3-2, 4-1, they're a damn good football team. And to be able to beat Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid here in front of your home crowd, I think would be massive for them moving forward because of knowing what they can do. We have seen so far a little bit of a glimpse here, a little bit of a glimpse there, but not a full performance enough to say that you're good enough to hang with the big boys, in my opinion. The 3 wins that they have so far this season have not been incredibly impressive. And the teams that they've lost to have not been incredibly impressive. So the Niners right now, I think, need to make a statement, and this is a great showcase to do it.
Yeah, you know what? I talk about, it's a word, QUIT, quit. When you look at a team like the Saints, they've shown you that they have some quit in them. At the end of the game, you see them just kind of lay down. You can go around the league and look at Jacksonville, a team that looked like was going to be in a playoff type of team. You see them quit.
Yeah.
You go around this league and you look at some teams that you say, what does this team make up? You look at Arizona, you see some quit in them. You look around and you think about some of the teams that looked like they were going to be good. The Dallas Cowboys, for instance, watch them. They quit. When the game's on the line, certain things happen. You look at this Cowboy team, they have some quit in them. One thing about the Niners, I'm going somewhere with this. One thing about the Niners this year, in spite of playing as bad and letting some missed opportunities get away, they don't quit. There's your hope. You have a team that's going to play hard. They're going to play hard. They're not playing necessarily smart. They're not playing necessarily technique sound. But one thing about this team compared to some teams out there, they don't quit. And that's what you have to say, hey, look, this is a good thing that you have a team that even though they've lost some games, the Niners haven't quit this year.
No, they haven't. I mean, where they've hurt themselves is like the Scarecrow, right? They're not the Tin Man. They got heart, right? They're not the Lion. They got courage.
Sure.
But they're the Scarecrow. They haven't played with their heads enough in order to be a football team that's north of 500. Even the game last week, or 2 weeks, I guess, week and a half ago against Seattle, that was a game that I feel like they closed, but the Seahawks were the ones that sort of initiated, in my opinion. Geno Smith did not play very well. And credit to Renardo Green making a big pick down the stretch of that football game to put it away. Of course, Isaac Guerrero has a big run up the sideline. They eventually punched it in to go up by double digits, 12-point win. But that was a game that was open. That was a game that was a pre-snap penalty away from a DK Metcalf touchdown, making that a very close football game after being up by 20 points. So the Niners, yes, they technically closed on the road on a short week, to their credit, on Thursday night in Seattle, but they have not yet, I think, to do it against an opponent that doesn't have quit in them. I think the Seahawks have shown they got a little bit of quit in them. You look at the Jets, obviously, with everything that we just talked about. If we get rid of the head coach, don't know where the season's going. They got some quit in them. And then, of course, the New England Patriots are a team that's expected to compete. So the 49ers, I think, to your point, Lo, have to show that they can close a football team against a team that doesn't have quit, because the Niners yet have not really gotten to that point so far this season.
Yeah, and then earlier we talked about championship type of rounds, championship football. You know, the latter rounds. Floyd Mayweather, he was always going to win that 10th and that 11th and 12th round. You go look at his fighting career and you think about those championship rounds, he found a way to close, and he found a way to keep guys off guard when they would try to hit him. He'd hit them 2 or 3 times and get out of there. And that's what you saw against Seattle. Instead of them saying, you know what, I'm going to keep them off guard, pop, 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 I'm going to knock them out and go ahead and finish them and not give them hope. They sat there in the 11th and 12th and said, okay, boom, I'm going to go rope-a-dope and take unnecessarily punishment, take unnecessarily hits that we don't have to take. We can just say, look, all we got to do is stay aggressive and keep punching and keep our hands up and keep moving, and we will go ahead and finish these guys off. And that's what we're talking about, championships round. That's the difference between championship teams and teams that get right there to the finish line and can't get in the playoffs. Teams that can't win the big game because they don't know how to close. We know this team shown that they can close. We've seen this team play at a very, very high level. We just haven't seen the consistency this year.
And we'll dig deeper into some of these X's and O's, the matchups we're looking to see from obviously the quarterbacks, obviously the head coaches, but also kind of an underlying factor in this game is it is as close as you can get to a preview of a big postseason matchup, because this game, whoever wins it, it'll be nice. You know, the Niners can move to 4-3, the Chiefs could move to 6-0, but it's not going to write what happened last year in the Super Bowl.
No.
And I know a lot of people have said this already this week. The game that does matter would be the next time they have to play. But as you well know, every time you play in a Super Bowl, you get a week off.
Right.
Well, the Chiefs are coming off a bye week. The Niners are coming off an extended week, though they played on Thursday. They don't have a full bye, but kind of a mini built-in bye. This is as close to a simulation of what you would have to play in February in New Orleans if they were to get there to potentially beat this team again. A long ways to go. Who knows if the Niners are going to make it? Who knows if the Chiefs are going to make it? But it's also something else that essentially replicates or simulates what they had to do last year, and what makes it even the more difficult.
Yeah, it really does, because the magnitude of this game, it is big. I know you're saying it doesn't matter if you're not going to win. It doesn't mean this is a Super Bowl or any indication of the Super Bowl.
I'm just saying you can't go win last year's Super Bowl today.
No. I totally agree with you there, 100%. I think also, though, if you look at Kansas City, if they leave out of here being 5-1, that's okay.
Yeah.
Because they got a 2 or 3 game win on the lead over the Chargers, Denver, and the Raiders. Mm-hmm. So think about what this means to these two teams. This game, the Niners should be playing with their hair on fire. This game means more, and it's bigger for the Niners than it is Kansas City. I just got to tell you that, because a lot of you, well, you know what, it's not going to. No, it's not. But let me tell you, to be 3-4, and like, my goodness, we got 3-4. Okay, Dallas. Okay, get back to 4-4. But you're never getting ahead of the sticks. We always talk about it in football. Talking about win on first and second down for you can be 3rd and 3 or less. Mm-hmm. 3rd and 3 or less, your percentages of converting first downs go through the roof. When you're 3rd and 7 or more, 3rd and 5 or more, the percentage is less, because they can play man-to-man. You can bring the heat, and usually the extra guy, 1,001, 1,002, the ball has to be gone. If the ball's not gone, the pressure, because they're usually going to bring one more guy that you can't block. That's why on those 3rd and 2s and 3s, you have to play off or have to do some other things, because of the fact the ball's coming out quick. 3rd and 5, 3rd and 7, 3rd and 8, the ball can't come out. Sometimes it can't come out quick because they can put pressure on you and you can't necessarily block. That's what I'm talking about. That's why this game, to me, means more for the Niners, because it gives them an opportunity to be ahead. It gives them a chance to finally go be 4-3 instead of looking up and saying, okay, guys, we're 3-4. We got to win next week to get back to 500.
Exactly. Well, and it was not exactly the same situation. The Chiefs weren't undefeated, but when they last played each other here at Levi's was 2 years ago. The Chiefs were 4-2. The Niners were 3-3. The Niners were slightly favored in that football game, and Kansas City just walked them up and down the field and sent them to 3-4.
Yeah.
So a comparable situation, but a very different set of characters, including obviously the quarterback, Jimmy Garoppolo, because Brock Purdy had not taken over to that point yet. So I do think that you're onto something. The urgency is clearly with San Francisco. This is a team not only urgent to, beat the Chiefs, take revenge, but also get back above 500.
Right.
They've been below 500 now 2 times this year.
Right.
It's the first time it's ever happened with Brock Purdy as quarterback. And when you're playing from below sea level, I mean, Dallas is a team you've had ownage over, but that's not an easy football game to win next week. And then you're looking at basically only being 4-4 going into the bye. So you're right. This is a big game that the Niners, from a standing, just a pure standing standpoint, do need much more than KC.
And that's the thing that you want to see today. And that's why it's better to be able to look down than look up. Because when you're looking up the mountain, sometimes it can be discouraging. Before you start looking up that hill, before you start running up a hill, you look up and like, let me get my mind right because I got a long run up. Mm-hmm. When you get up and you're ahead, when you say, I'm further up than I am down, now you look and you say, okay, it gives you more confidence. You can dig a little deeper. You have a little bit more energy because when you look down and you say, man, I've already came a long ways. I can see the finish line. That's what this is. That's what the analogy I'm trying to make is that's what this is about. Because even though you just start, you look up and you're like, okay, I got to stay focused. I got to stay. And that's why when you're at 3 and 4, it's just a different feeling, man. I played this game. I've been in locker rooms where, you're behind the 8 ball. The sense of urgency goes up, and you're like, doggone it. Why do we keep getting in this position? You're like, man, what is it? What's wrong? You're trying to identify what we got to do. Guys are trying to push a little hard. Guys are getting a little more frisky at practice. Going to work is not as easy. The soreness of your body, the pain, your hams, the body, you're like, God, and you're still not 500. When you're winning, you're out there playing with energy. You're playing with love. You're playing with more just relax. When you're ahead and looking down, you just like, okay, here we go. Yeah, you could be sore, still sore, but the soreness doesn't feel as bad when you're looking up compared to looking down.
And that's Lorenzo Neal talking. Did this for damn near 20 years in the NFL, so he knows what he's talking about. I mean, the other part about the Niners, too, is at least it does help a little bit. The rest of the division doesn't look as strong as it did, or I think a lot of people expected it to look this season. Even though they've lost, of course, to Arizona and Los Angeles, everyone else is 500 or below, too. Yeah. So, the Niners would love to get this win to basically keep themselves atop the division. And, again, just breathe a little bit. They haven't been able to breathe so far this season. I mean, they've had their head underwater. They've been gasping for air, whether it's because of injuries, whether it's because of blown leads, whether it's because they haven't been able to execute when they've needed to. This has not been a team that has been able to play with that freedom that you're talking about, a team that has that confidence to know that this time last year they were 5-1. Right. They were playing with love. They were playing with joy. This team right now, I think, is playing with a little more tightness than we saw last year.
Exactly. Who sings that song? My head's underwater. I forget who sings that, Hit the text on 955. Anyway, let me know who sings.
Little Mermaid? What we do?
No, it's an R&B singer. The text line will let me know. They'll let me know. I'm surprised Cam hadn't hit me in my ear and told me who sings that song because I sound like him. My head's underwater. But, yeah, you're absolutely right. To be out of the water, to be on top, it just makes you feel different. And I think that these guys understand that and the importance of just playing better football. You think about where this Niner team has been when they were 5, and think about last year, you're talking about 5-1. You don't think that you're going to lose a game because when you're winning and you know how to win, it makes you feel different because even if you're down, you're like, we're winning this game. You look, and it's just something it does when you are losing, though, and that's why Kansas City, look at those guys. They find a way to win even when the game is close. You don't see panic. You see just teams relax. You see them just like, okay. And if they know they're down by 3, you look at them, they're like, okay, we got this. And you watch in that fourth quarter, okay, a team of blink, make a mistake, and here we go. The Kansas City Chiefs win that game. The Niners had that. And that's what you don't see that they when they're close and the game's close and they're up by 3, you see the Niners, you watch the body language and you see it's like it's not that confidence. And that's what's missing. And that's why you need to change the trajectory of this team to start feeling that way because it gives you more confidence. It gives you that or that you're like, okay, we know we're going to win. And now especially, you have a lot of young guys, secondary, running backs. These guys, they need to feel that. Some of these guys, they understand when college, man, it's the 49ers. They know how to win. But now you have a team that is being tested. So you need to show these young guys how as a veteran, how as a leader, that we're going to show you, hey, don't worry, guys. We got this. We're getting ready to start turning this around, because the sooner you can do that, guess what? These younger players are going to start making more plays. They're going to become more aggressive. You're going to see more things happen. Look at Isaac Worthy from Kansas City, little receiver. Because they're having success, they expect that. And now you look at the way that he plays with passion, all those different things, because they're having success. When you win and you have your young players, because your organization is a dynasty, and you find out that you know you can win and you start winning like that, you see it. It becomes infectious on the other players. That's what winning does. It's more than just friggin' X's and O's. Winning starts to breed the success, and now you're setting a foundation, and that's how you start these dynasties. And that's why Kansas City, do you see everyone talk about the Kansas City Chiefs and how they're a dynasty? Because of the fact they win, and now the young guys come in and they don't miss a beat, because they're not expected to do everything. They want to do things because they know the team around is pretty good.
Well, speaking of winning, anybody here at the Hilton Santa Clara is winning today. People are starting to roll in. The libations are starting to flow. We got my man on the ones and twos in the McCaffrey jersey bumping with the crowd. Come by, have some fun, say what's up. We're at the Hilton Santa Clara. This is the Kickoff Show brought to you by Habas Law. If you've been wrong, Habas Law will fight to make it right. Chiefs, Niners, Super Bowl rematch, 125 kick. We got you until then, right here on 95.7 The Game. We're back after this.
Now back to the Kickoff Show on 95.7 The Game.
Appreciate Lorenzo Neal taking a break from hanging with the crowd, just tossing a couple balls.
Yeah, you like that. I looked like Purdy out there, didn't I? Did you see them strikes I was throwing? I mean, I wasn't even throwing incompletes, baby. I was throwing dimes out there. We got some balls out here, throwing them to the crowd out here.
Yep.
They getting hypey out here. My man E's been watching me throw these dimes. He's watching me tell guys to go long. I got Debo out there. I'm like, man, hitting him in stride.
Throwing the ball to Kittle, throwing the ball to the Jerry Rice jerseys.
Exactly.
Even the Kansas City Chiefs fans come get some love. All right, the Hilton Santa Clara, that is where we're partying at right now on the Kickoff Show, brought to you by Habas Law. And this is the thing. Look, it is about the party. To me, right now, there isn't tension, and there shouldn't be until kickoff, until 125.
Right.
And we got plenty of time to get into the Niners. We got an extra hour on air here on 95.7 The Game. We also got my man Jake Hutchinson coming in. He is our 49ers insider. He's here every single day, in and out of the building, knows well. He's going to join us, I believe, at the top of the hour at 11 o'clock. But in the meantime, we also have to look at the lay of the land. We have to look, everyone has their eyes on the Chiefs and the Niners. People want to see what's going on at Levi's Stadium between the defending champs and the runner-ups, the Super Bowl rematch. But around the NFC, there are a lot of people, specifically in the NFC North, really everyone outside of the NFC West, that I think has been not necessarily shocking people, but drawing a lot of eyes. The Minnesota Vikings are taking on the Detroit Lions today for a place at the top of that division, which looks like possibly the best division in football. You're looking at the Houston Texans, who are taking on the Green Bay Packers, a couple of 4- and 5-win teams. There are a lot of good squads right now going on.
Give me some scores, baby. Give the people some scores right now.
Well,
baby.
would it shock you to know that Minnesota's up 10-0 on the Detroit Lions?
Wow. I'm going to tell you right now, this Minnesota Viking team is just playing lights out. I mean, they're undefeated. When you look at their schedule and the way that they're playing, Sam Darnold, the re-emergence of his career.
He was looking like you.
Man, he was looking like me the way I was throwing them dimes out there to the fans. Absolutely. But think about Sam Darnold. He comes to the Niners, and that's why Niner fans, Niner players, you look at the system. Here's a guy that got ran out of New York.
Yep.
Got ran out of Carolina. And you heard him say the best thing happened in his career was come to the Niners. He said he didn't know what he didn't know. What he did was being able to practice with Purdy, watching Purdy, the understanding what Purdy's done, going through the fundamentals and what Purdy brought to the table for him. When a guy like Sam Darnold can say that about Purdy and this organization, and look what he's done to Minnesota. He took that same winning attitude to Minnesota and showed them what does it take to win. You had a guy in Kirk Cousins that was there for years, but look what Sam Darnold did because of his study, his attention to detail, and things that he learned from this Niners organization has really elevated his play. And that's why right now the Minnesota Vikings is beating Detroit Lions 10-0, and that's pretty good.
Well, look, it's a freestyle right here we got for the next couple of hours up until the Niners and the Chiefs kick off here live at the Hilton Santa Clara on the Kickoff Show with Evan Giddings, Lorenzo Neal. And now, pleased to be joined by our 49ers insider, Jake Hutchinson.
Jake!
What's going on, man? How you doing?
What's going on, fellas? Appreciate you having me on.
Oh, of course. Well, thanks for stopping by. I mean, look, it's a party outside. First and foremost, do you feel like there is, I don't know whether it's tension or urgency around the building, because we know it's going to be inside the building later on today, looking at the Super Bowl rematch. But did you feel like I don't know, this Kansas City, I was on a flight earlier today coming back from the Midwest. Kansas City Chiefs fans are jumping off the plane, jumping for joy. Niners fans are coming into town. Everybody's coming together for what we believe to be obviously not a Super Bowl itself, but a Super Bowl rematch.
Yeah, it's funny because honestly, I think this was the loosest I've seen the Niners practice all year. Kyle Juszczyk punted like a 55-yarder in practice.
Wow.
Vibes were good. Ricky Pearsall was, I think he was a factor too. And just,
How'd he look?
He looks fast, man.
Really?
He was gassed the first day because he's just going full speed and it's a mid-season practice.
Sure.
And he's just so excited that
his body looks recovered. Looks like he's catching balls. It looks really good.
Yeah. I mean, they show us only like the first 4 periods, but he looks good, man. He's cutting. He's quick. I mean, he tested 90th percentile and everything before the draft. I love what I see from him. I was a huge fan, before the draft, but but I think he looks good.
You think we'll see this young fella today? What do you think? In a limited role? How do you think they utilize a guy who missed pretty much, a lot of the training camp, didn't get any of the season because of the injury that happened, of course, unforeseen injury.
Yeah.
But how do you see how this Niner team, implement this young guy into the game?
Hell of a debut.
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing. The funny thing about it is, I think the reason they drafted Pearsall in the first place was going back to that Chiefs game, right? They had Debo Samuel, who could not separate from man coverage, and they kept throwing the ball his way. He had 6 targets against man coverage, 0 catches. I think Pearsall was a guy they think can separate or at least challenge man coverage. And so today, I don't think he's going to have a full role, but with no Jawan Jennings, I mean, I think you need to have him out there. I think we'll probably see a decent amount of Chris Conley too. He's just a vet they trust to run the routes. But I think you got to have Pearsall out there. Maybe it's only, 20, 25 snaps, something to ease him in there. But I think if he's looking good and he's looking like, he's challenging the Chiefs, who are going to play a lot of man, and the 49ers are going to have to beat it to get him to change to the zone that they love. I think you got to have Pearsall out there for, probably not like a full run, but a decent, 20-snap chunk.
Well, and that's what Spagnuolo was talking about this week in regards to Purdy. It's like he eviscerates zone defense. And so you're going to have to keep them in man, which is also where the Chiefs are largely successful. Do you feel like that this defense, and I think it's been the strength of the team so far this year, their offense hasn't been necessarily high-flying, and they've been dealing with their own injuries, of course, at the wide receiving position. But do you feel like this Chiefs defense is that much different from last year?
No, it's funny because they lost L'Jarius Sneed, who's been terrible in Tennessee, and that's something that you thought, that's going to be a big loss for him. But they've got this corner, Jalen Watson, who's been awesome in man coverage. He's the 3rd most man coverage snaps. McDuffie's still excellent. They still they blitz a ton. It's funny. They're the best defense in the league on blitzes. The 49ers are the worst defense in the league on blitzes. These teams are like inverse images of each other. It's funny because I just think Kansas City, they got a lot of beef in the middle, and the 49ers interior of their offensive line is pretty weak. Right. And so you got a situation where it's like Chris Jones, Tershawn Wharton, Mike Pennell, just big guys. Monsters. It's going to be a real challenge for the 49ers, and the Chiefs are, like you said, kind of the same as last year.
And when you talk about that, let's just talk about kind of get into this Niners, kind of the offense where we were at, and you're talking about Conley and the receivers that are stepped up. When you're saying, okay, Debo's not necessarily can't separate the best, but he's one of those guys we know when the ball's in his hand, that's when magic happens.
Right.
You think about, Conley. What does he bring? What does a veteran like Conley bring to the table? What have you seen? Because we haven't seen a lot of him necessarily this year. I know Giddings has been that 3rd down guy, and he's shown that he can be a go-to in a very, very critical situation. He's Mr. Reliable. But what do you see at the other guys? We understand who Debo is. Ayuk runs nice routes, gets in and out. He can probably separate a little bit in man coverage. The other guys.
Yeah.
Who's those other guys that you look at and say, okay, this guy can do this?
Right. So I'll start with Conley. I just think they trust him to know every single play and exactly how Kyle Shanahan wants him to run his routes. He's not, where he is physically, earlier in his career, but he is still he's the biggest receiver they have. He's a really physical presence. So if they are going to press, I think he's got the strength to break off of that, especially if it's breaking out versus breaking in. So he can do that. I think Jacob Cowan's an X factor in this game. They haven't used him a lot. He's been hurt, but he's a guy that, like, if you run a little drag route or have him over the middle, he can run. And, he's been in this offense more than Pearsall has so far. So he's a guy where, again, I think it's a limited route tree, but he's pretty quick. Like, I think he can challenge the defense vertically, but, they haven't used him a lot. I don't know if that trust is there. They clearly trust him on punt returns. He's been pretty reliable there. I wonder if they get him mixed in a little bit more, too.
95.7 The Game insider for the 49ers, Jake Hutchinson, joining us live at the Hilton Santa Clara before the Niners take on the Kansas City Chiefs. The kickoff show with Lorenzo, Neal, and Evan Giddings is brought to you by Habas Law. Well, I do want to stick with the offense because the Niners, in my opinion, so far this season at least, I'm not really sure who they are yet. And if I asked you what the identity of this team is, I'm not really sure that there's just one thing that it comes to. Even though last year at this point, they were 5-1. They're coming off their first loss. They looked like they finally had somewhat of a weakness in their armor. This year has been such a Jekyll and Hyde act that even in some of their wins, specifically last time out against Seattle, there was still maybe Did they really close, or did Seattle help them close? These are the questions that I feel like they have a great chance to answer against an obviously supreme opponent like Kansas City.
I'm with you. I think this team has not really proven much this season. You know, they've gotten out to these great starts in the first half, and this defense has faded and the offense has faded, and you get into a situation where, you know, Brock Purdy loves running shotgun, but like their core and their bread and butter, and they went back to it in Seattle where they just got under center and they ran play action. It's the least play action they've run in Kyle Shanahan's tenure here. I don't know if that's going to work against Kansas City, but it's funny because the offense developed to a point last year with McCaffrey where they could run out of shotgun, and he's such a man coverage beater that, you know, he would just challenge it and teams would let them get into the zones, or they'd run man coverage and then McCaffrey would beat it. But without him, Jordan Mason doesn't really do that. You know, he's a great running back. He's second in the league in, you know, rushing yards after contact. And I think that's going to challenge Kansas City on the outside where they're a little weaker. But yeah, they don't really have an identity. They're trying to run the same stuff as last year, and without McCaffrey, it's not really working. And I don't think Purdy's had the chemistry with Ayuk to really look his way as much as he should.
No question, he really has, and had the chemistry with him and Ayuk, not having training camp, and kind of had a slow start. When you think about the part you talked about Jordan Mason and this running back crew. We understand McCaffrey. If he's even, he's a guy that's leaving. You look at Jordan Mason, these guys, yeah, they can run hard, and he's probably more of a chain mover than a game changer. He can move the chains better than McCaffrey, but McCaffrey's a game changer. You talked about, hey, look, what Mason can't do. As far as in the passing game, McCaffrey could line up in the backfield, line up in trips, line up at, in the point. He could be any, play the X, play the Y, play the Z. He's a nightmare. He's a nightmare for linebackers because he's too fast for linebackers. He's too physical for safeties. So what do you do now? So since you haven't had that ability as a running back to beat man coverage and do things make teams say, I got to play zone, because if McCaffrey catches the ball against a linebacker, he can turn a 5-yard play into, a home run. So what do you think the Niners do offensively, schematically, or player-wise to overcome that setback?
I think going back to basics last week worked against Seattle. I'm not sure this is a defense that'll work as well on. But if they can test their edges, I think that's a huge part of it. But, testing them in a way where, Isaac Guerrero is a guy that he broke out a little bit. He's a guy that at Louisville was great in the pass game, catching and going. If they can get him on some bubble screens and make the Chiefs have to account that way, that's something that can test them. And if they do end up spreading it out, Purdy is liked, and granted, Mason, like we said, he's not really going to test him the same way as McCaffrey. I still think George Kittle, this is a great game for him, because Nick Bolton, he's a sure tackling linebacker, but he can really be beat by tight ends. The Chiefs are the worst at allowing yards to tight ends. I think this is a big Kittle game, and I think Pearsall, if they put man coverage and they spread it out and he challenges them, I think Ayuk's going to get some opportunities. Purdy just has to look his way.
Well, and George Kittle has been the best red zone target, arguably, in football this season, leading with 5 touchdowns. And I just think it's interesting how, kind of the one-on-one verses that everyone likes to put up for these specific teams, right? Purdy versus Mahomes, Kittle versus Kelsey. Kittle and Purdy statistically have outperformed their Hall of Fame counterparts, but it's almost like that doesn't really matter in this situation. You just throw it out because Mahomes, the question about him is always, well, how do you stop him? Well, teams have kind of limited him a little bit this season. He hasn't been as prolific as he's been in years past, and obviously in the postseason. So I just wonder how defensively, because that's an area where the Niners, I think, have been better than people give them credit for, but situationally have struggled. And that's where the Chiefs really take advantage of you, is when they got to have it, they go get it. And so I just wonder how the Niners defense is going to be able to match up against the Chiefs offense that isn't what it used to be. Certainly is missing a Rashee Rice, and Xavier Worthy looks like a game breaker, but they're not a high power explosive offense. How do they try and limit these players? Or do they kind of just take what other teams have done, which has been working?
Yeah, it's something where it's as much as it's a corny coach speak thing, bend, don't break.
Yeah.
Because the thing about Mahomes is he used to be a guy that with Tyreek, you just chuck it downfield, and that was his whole identity. And I think specifically last year when the receiving core got a bunch of random guys, he just started taking checkdowns. He would take whatever's there, and he's really good at dink and dunking you. They run some more RPOs. They run a lot of stuff. And their run game, they don't run the ball a lot, but they're really good. They've got the best interior offensive line in the league.
Effective.
And they're a team that can just dink and dunk you and grind you down the field. And I think the 49ers, they've been a really bad second half of the game defense.
Yeah.
If the Chiefs do that, and granted, like, they might come up with some field goals early, they make adjustments better than any team in the league. I think if they do that and they wear on the 49ers defense and they're weak at defensive tackle, they've got a lot of injuries, they've not been good against the run there, I think the Chiefs can wear on them, and that's something that the 49ers, they've got to be really sound with their gaps on the interior and not getting beat there and forcing, like, a Juju Smith-Schuster who's, kind of got a hamstring thing to beat you.
Right.
He had a big end the last time he was here. It was a couple years ago, but I think he had like $120 and 8 catches. So, last time they were here, they ran it up.
They
dropped
did
42 points.
And that's the thing that you're saying. You look at the Kansas City, they haven't shown that they can get 30. They haven't shown that they can go out and just light it up. But like you said, they bend, but they don't break. It's a team that if you get 24, you win this game. If you're the Niners, you can get to 24, you win this game. A guy that, that you have to account for. And you talk about how the Niners defense interior, I agree with you, haven't stopped the run yet, haven't been consistent all year except the Jets game. There's a guy on the other side, Chris Jones. How do you slow that guy down? He can play the 3. He can play defensive end. He plays up and down the line. What's the Niners? What's the answer?
Well, they better have an answer because they lost the Super Bowl because on 2 plays they had offensive line protection breakdowns, and they had a touchdown to Debo that would have been a touchdown, and Chris Jones was unblocked. And then they had another one where I think Ayuk came wide open in the end zone, and Jones again went unblocked because Burford blew the protection. And it's just something where, Chris Foerster, offensive line coach, talked about it. He's like, yeah, that's not been a good protection for us ever, which is not what you want to hear going into this game. But Trent Williams broke down basically how Spags likes to run Chris Jones. He's like, basically, Spags knows you basically put 2 people on Chris Jones and you run blitzes away from him. So that's something the 49ers have to be ready for. That's how Trent McDuffie got him on that key play. Yeah. I mean, Spags is going to mix it up. He's going to throw blitzes at you. You just have to try and account as best you can. And hopefully, like, Dominic Pooney plays well against Chris Jones, which is,
hard task.
It's a hard task, and Foerster was talking about it. Pooney's been great, but teams are getting more film on him, and they're picking up on stuff. And regardless of how good a rookie's been, it's Chris Jones. So, they can have a great game plan, but he's going to beat you a couple times. You just got to hope it's not on those key third downs.
Well, it feels like he's, just because of his retirement, just taking Aaron Donald's place. I mean, as far as the marquee guy in the middle to get to a quarterback whenever he wants to. I did want to ask you about that guy for the 49ers and Nick Bosa, because he's coming off one of arguably his best games of his career in Seattle. Do you feel like the rap on Bosa has been a little more harsh just because there hasn't been the sack totals? Or do you feel like some of the criticism has been fair for a player that is one of the highest paid ever?
I think there's 2 parts. I think Bosa needs to finish better because he gets guys close and he just doesn't hold on. And that's a fair criticism, but he's creating pressure at a ridiculous rate. Like, he forced an interception from Geno, and on that one play that DK got like 30 yards, if Bosa wasn't pressuring him, Jackson Smith and Jigba was wide open down the other side of the field. It would have been a touchdown. So, like, Bosa's doing stuff that is really affecting the game. But yeah, you do have to finish. And against a guy like Mahomes, if you don't finish, if you get a hand on him and he goes free, you know what's going to happen. You know he's going to find somebody 40 yards down the field, and it's going to break your spine.
How much is this due to the fact that the other guys, when you talked about what Bosa's been able to do, and you say, hey, look, here's some stuff that's not in the stats, but this is what he's doing. Is it the lack of other guys? And so what guys need to, did you say, man, something has to happen up front? We know who Freddie is. You know what some of the guys are doing on the back end. What needs to transpire up front besides Bosa to really put this team in a position that they can win this game today?
Yeah, Leonard Floyd, like, his whole career is not that he's like this dynamic beater. He's got a nice cross chop move, but he's not really always winning. It's like he needs to wait for Bosa to get the pressure and then finish the guy if Bosa doesn't finish him. That's one. Number 2, my X factor this week, Sam Okuanu. He's been a backup defensive end. He broke out against the Patriots. He's kind of been, understated since then. He is a very good player. He's got like the 18th highest pressure rate in the league in pass sets. He's an elite run defender. He's setting the edge in a way that 49ers haven't had. I think he could be really important. And And the Chiefs have terrible offensive tackles. They've got Wanya Morris, who replaced Kingsley Suamataia, the rookie who's been bad. And then they've got Juwan Taylor, who's just been terrible. But, in the playoffs, you're allowed to hold and you're allowed to false start.
Exactly.
And so if they don't get away with that stuff, I think the 49ers are going to have a lot of luck getting home to Mahomes. But, it's the Chiefs, and they're a little lenient with that stuff. So we'll see what they get away with.
Jake Hutchinson, 49ers Insider for 95.7 The Game, joining us on the Kickoff show here at the Hilton Santa Clara. Well, but before we got to hit a break at the top of the hour, but I do want to get, I don't know, just your feeling on this game. I just got back from Las Vegas. I've been seeing this line move heavily in the Niners' favor. I think it was originally 1. Now it's closer to 2.5. I don't know if you are a gambling man whatsoever, but when you saw this game and after seeing the week of extended practice for the Niners, how do you feel about it? Do you feel like they can win this football game?
If I was going on vibes, I would say the Niners' vibes are actually really good. Just going on that, going on how practice went, going that they're being pretty humble, and they're like, we have not beaten this team, and we have to acknowledge that. It's not the Super Bowl, blah, blah, blah. That said, watching the film, I just think it's specifically a bad matchup for the 49ers without McCaffrey, with Pierce all in his first week, with no Jennings. I think there's just going to be so much man coverage. The 49ers have not proven that they can beat it effectively. They've not shown they're effective in the red zone. And with the way the Chiefs are built, it's the opposite of the Niners. I think they can really attack the Niners front on offense, and they can probably stop them up the middle on defense. And it's tough. It's tough. I just think it's a tough matchup in my gut. If you want a prediction, I'd say 27 Chiefs, 23 Niners. It's it's tough. I think the Niners can absolutely win that game. But I predicted them to win both of the last 2 Super Bowls against the Chiefs, so I'm going to flip it. And
maybe it works out the other way. I like what you're thinking.
Maybe it flips.
The reverse devil tongue. I love it.
Yeah, can I get you a question on the other side, or you want to have them go through break, or what do we want to do here?
You cool sticking around?
I'm good.
All right, Jake Hutchinson is going to stick with us here on the Kickoff show, brought to you by Habas Law. If you've been wronged, Habas Law will fight to make it right. Call 1-800-INJURED or visit habaslaw.com. That's Lorenzo, Neal, Evan Giddings. Stop by the Hilton, say what's up. You might catch a football from Sam Darnold, a.k.a. Lorenzo Neal. On the other side, as we continue on, we roll towards 125 here. Niners, Chiefs on 95.7 The Game.
Now back to the Kickoff Show on 95.7 The Game.
Well, it's about that time in the program in which Stokes with Low hits the airwaves. For everybody watching on YouTube and Twitch, we got a couple of Cubans. For everybody listening on air, Lorenzo Neal always brings what we hope can be a victory cigar.
Why not?
To the Kickoff Show live at the Hilton Santa Clara. We got Jake Hutchinson with us before the 49ers take on the Chiefs. Gonna stay away from the cigars right now, but maybe we'll have one after the game.
Maybe.
Yeah, absolutely. We're not lighting it up. We're just taking the time, Jake. We just got it. We're just it's a little pre. Yeah, exactly. Whatever that is, I got you. E. I had a question. I appreciate you sticking around. I know you got to get out of here, act like a tree and leave, but I look at always say football comes in 3 stages. Offense counts to third. Defense counts to third, and special teams counts to third. How big will special teams be in the outcome of this game today?
Listen, people don't like to talk about special teams. I love it. You got your third kicker. You got Anders Carlson, who you might remember because he blew it for the Packers against the 49ers in the playoffs. And Kyle Shanahan did not exactly give a glowing review of Carlson. He was asked, and he's like, what about his kickoffs? And he's like, well, there's a reason these guys are available, which is not what you want to hear from your head coach, who, by the way, doesn't watch any of these kickers try out. It's a concern. It's a guy who is available for a reason, as Shanahan said. He's a guy who's not great on kickoffs, which means you're going to have to cover. Hope your kicker doesn't have to tackle again. I think that's a real concern. Their kickoff coverage has just been so poor this season, and I think that's something that you really got to worry about.
Is he even allowed to tackle?
Shanahan answered that question.
Well, no, I'm serious. They've had 2 kickers hurt, both on kickoffs where they're trying to get to somebody, and now they're on a guy that clearly Shanahan probably doesn't have much confidence in. I'm also curious because Carlson isn't advertised as a guy with a big leg. He's relatively accurate, but where do you think that Shanahan is going to feel comfortable today using Carlson?
I think they're going to try anything inside the 50. But, they always end up in a situation where they're not as aggressive as they should be, or they have a little holding call or just something that gets them backed up or a run that gets stuffed. And then, say a 48 turns into a 54-yard field goal. And they're probably going to end up with an uncomfortable field goal situation with their third kicker. And Shanahan's probably going to have to trust him in a spot he doesn't want to.
And that's the whole thing we talk about is field position. And this is a game today when you look at a team like Kansas City, they thrive off field position. They're a team that say, look, let's play the field position. They punt. They believe in their defense. Field position is big. It's one of the pages. It's one of the things that the Niners used to always dominate is field position and time of possession. How much of a factor does that play as well?
I think it's huge. I think the Niners are a team that, which Mitch Wisnowski's been good, but I think that's really important to them. I think he might honestly handle kickoffs today, to be honest. I know people are probably like, really, we're talking kickoffs? But it does matter. It does matter, especially you cannot give Mahomes an extra yard, anything that's extra in this game. I think, obviously, turnovers are the number one thing, but I think if they're going to win this game, they cannot turn the ball over. They cannot have a situation like that because Mahomes and Reed and Spagnuolo, they're relentless, and they will get you on any edge they have.
Real quick, trivia question for not trivia, but just tell me who today. You look at these 2 teams. I know you said, hey, Kansas City, give them the edge, and understandably so. You have to, because what they've done in the past. Who throws for more yards and why today out of the 2 quarterbacks?
I would expect Purdy for sure. I think the 49ers, as much as I talked about, going back to basics last week, I think there are opportunities for them to spread it out and get good matchups with Kittle and get good opportunities there. I think it's probably going to be Purdy. He's just been throwing the ball really well. And Mahomes, again, what's funny is they've actually flipped. The 49ers used to be all yak. 49ers are last in the league on where they get their yards from in the pass game. It's 32% on yak. Mahomes is 64% on yak, which is first in the league. So Mahomes is dinking and dunking, and guys are running after. So I think it depends, honestly, who wins that battle, how well they tackle. If the 49ers defense tackles well, Purdy will have more yards. If they don't tackle well, you might have some explosive plays where it's a 5-yard pass and it's ripped off for 40 yards, and then Mahomes passes for more. So I think that might determine it.
Well, and I wanted to ask you about Purdy because, I don't know, it feels like he is now officially established, but he's still relatively young in his career. And the biggest test for him has been a Spagnuolo-led defense. And I just wonder how much of an opportunity you feel like this is for him to prove how much he has grown, how much he has learned, because I thought he played fine in the Super Bowl. He wasn't outstanding, but he certainly wasn't the reason that they lost the football game. I think he does need to be the reason, if they're going to win today, why they win. And that, to me, is where I look for growth from 13.
I'm 100% with you. I think the 49ers' route to winning this game, obviously, run it well, but you might need the best Purdy game of his career. Quite honestly, against Spags, against this team. And listen, again, they've all talked about it. The 49ers players talked about it. Like, if they lose, it's not the end of the world, right? The season goes on. It actually doesn't matter on the stat sheet and, you know, in the standings. It doesn't matter that much. But, like, it would be such a gut punch to lose this game. And so I'm with you. It has to be Purdy. I think he answered it. I asked him about Spags and facing the blitzes. He needs to have hot answers, which the 49ers have struggled with. When they blitz, where is the ball going quick? Has to get there. It's going to be tough without Juwan Jennings, who's been that third down answer basically Purdy's whole career. You know, he just gets that advantageous matchup. They give him an option, and he usually wins. Without him, it's going to be tough. I think Purdy needs to trust what he sees. And, like, he's been, you know, kind of jumpy in the pocket. I think he needs to run at certain points this game, but it has to be when it needs to be. Not every snap, not jumping around. When he sees it, trust it, rip it, and then when it's not there, get out.
Hey, I know you got to get out here and act like a tree and get out of here, but last one for me. When you think about where the Niners are and where the Kansas City Chiefs are, you talked about Spags. Here's a guy that's pretty good defensive coordinator and has seemed like the Niners number. Would you find it interesting that Spags tries to reach out to Purdy? What'd you think about all that?
I think
was it gamesmanship? What'd you think? Give me your.
I will say, I think Spags is a pretty earnest guy. I've talked to him before these Super Bowls, and he is, like, truly wears it all on his chest. I think there's obviously the Chiefs are good at gamesmanship, too. They know how that all works. So I'm sure part of that is the calculation, right? Like, it doesn't hurt to talk up the opposing quarterback. But, you know, he's honest. And I think he realizes Purdy is an elite quarterback and has been playing at a really elite level so far in his career. And the only reason people, I think, don't give him the credit is because he was drafted last, which is really funny because the people that criticize him are usually, like, film experts.
Yeah.
But they don't understand processing for some reason. I mean, he's just, any way you look at it, Purdy is a very, very good quarterback at minimum. And I think Spags recognizes that, and he does it in a way that is not just ripping it down the field 70 yards every single play. It's seen what a defense gives him, and it's taking advantage of it.
Well, appreciate you chopping it up with us for, you know, the last half hour. This has been a lot of fun, dude. Look, we got an extended pregame show today at the Hilton Santa Clara, and Jake Hutchinson, our 49ers insider, big part of it. So thank you, man.
Much appreciated. Thanks, guys.
You're the best.
See you up there in the press box. I mean, look, I do think that's the jumping off point right here. It's about Brock Purdy. This game can be, in many ways, I think, a reason to believe that the Niners can get this season back on track and get it to where it needs to go. And 13 can be a big part of that. That's what franchise quarterbacks do.
He's going to have to be huge. And that's why I asked the question, because I do see Purdy throwing for more yards than Mahomes. And it wasn't necessarily because they're going to be trailing, because a lot of people say, well, that's because they're going to necessarily be trailing. I see this being a very, very close game because I haven't seen Kansas City play lights out football this year. I've seen this team struggle. Kelsey's not able to separate like he used to, and you watch Kelsey now. Teams are, you know, trying to take him away. He's still Kelsey. He still can do some amazing things. You're going to have a chance to win this ball game. You're going to look at this ball game, and you're going to have some opportunities to have a chance because Kansas City, like you said, is no longer necessarily the big play offense that's going to get those huge explosive plays. So you're going to have a chance. It's how you play and how you handle adversity, and it's going to be what you do up front. That is going to be key. It's going to be key. It's going to be paramount. I know we always say it, and it's cliche, but I just have to continue. Football is won and lost in the trenches. And who's going to play best on the trenches in offense and also in defense?
Well, and the Niners' trenches haven't been bad this year. They've been able to help Jordan Mason be one of the leading rushers in football. They've helped Brock Purdy be one of the most prolific passers, yet again, and efficient passers in the game. But how do they hold up against a Kansas City defense that is the strength of their team? I mean, it sounds crazy when you talk about Mahomes or Kelsey that the offense is not their best side of the football, but it is. And I think that's where Mahomes, even though statistically he hasn't been as good as in years past when he's won MVPs and all the rest, but he understands that. And so he has the luxury maybe that Brock Purdy doesn't have right now because his defense hasn't been as stout. But Mahomes has the luxury to read a football game, to read the story of a game. And I think that's why Jake brought it up. And we talked about this.
Yeah.
The Chiefs will give up points early in games. The Chiefs will give up a touchdown on the first drive, maybe a field goal here. They're not afraid from playing from behind because they know how to adjust. And a big part of that is Mahomes understanding what his defense is going to do and give him field position, opportunities, and also knowing that he can get a little uncareful with the football if he needs to. He's got 6 interceptions this year.
Right.
But they're 5-0. So
right.
This is a football team that even if you get the takeaway you need, it doesn't necessarily mean that the Chiefs, and you said this earlier, they're never out of it.
No, they're not. And that's why when I think about some things that are very, very important, you talked about it earlier. We know we haven't necessarily got any keys, and here's one of them that I'm going to talk about and continue to talk about. You talked about how this team can charge Kansas City and move the ball with success, and that's the outside. Being able with Jordan Mason, be able to hit the perimeter, stretch this team. If you can have success running the ball, especially to these perimeters and getting outside and reaching guys and pushing guys out and give the running back some lanes, I really believe that this will be a big day where Kyle Shanahan moves the pocket. If Mason in the running game is having success on these outside, on these perimeters, look for this stretch and look for these boots to get Purdy outside the pocket on the backside because they're going to be trying to stop the run because the run is going to be effective. And now Purdy becomes even more dangerous because now he's outside. He can run our pass. He's got the crossings coming in front of him. He can have the deep shot down the field. I think you move the pocket today and you'll see Purdy do things with his legs and with the ball and put Kansas City in a tough position if they can make Kansas City have that end crash down and if they can have success running the ball to get Purdy outside the pocket today.
Well, and I think that the question of who's going to throw for more yards between Brock Purdy and Patrick Mahomes, I do think it is going to be Purdy. I'm with both you guys, Jake and yourself, Lo. But I also believe that if the Chiefs are going to win this game, Mahomes doesn't need to outpass Purdy.
No.
But if the Niners are to win this game, I do think that Purdy is going to have to outpass Mahomes. I do think he's going to have to dominate there because offensively, even though the Chiefs are down to Kareem Hunt, who they signed off the street. Samaje Perine is a decent, pass-catching back, but his best days are probably behind him. Carson Steele's been relegated. They don't have a great running back room. They're out Rashee Rice for the entire season. Xavier Worthy is their lone explosive rookie, but they run a lot of 3 tight end sets. They put guys on the field that aren't necessarily, massive names outside of Travis Kelce, but the 49ers, meanwhile, I do think, for example, this is a big opportunity for Brandon Ayuk. He has had a big game, and it was against the Patriots.
Yes.
But this is when you need those players that you pay the kind of money that Brandon Ayuk makes to make plays. And especially if Brandon Ayuk's strength is supposed to be able to beating man coverage, well, this is a Kansas City defense that offers it. This is a game where Brandon Ayuk needs to find himself open more often than not, especially with Juwan Jennings being out, because Brock Purdy has seemingly so far through this year had more of a developed chemistry just because of the lack of training camp for Ayuk with Juwan Jennings. That option, that safety blanket is not there today for them. So Brandon Ayuk has to be that safety blanket, I think.
Oh, I agree. I think that also if you can have Jordan Mason get his $125 and the Niners have 150 yards rushing, they win this game. And they win it pretty much hands down. If they can get 160 yards or more, they win, because now you're running and you're passing. Now you're eating up the clock, and if you score, not just run the ball, but get in the end zone, now you're eating up the clock, and you're making Chris Jones now not have the energy that he needs to have on these passing downs. If you can control the sticks, and if you can control the run game, and this Niner says, hey, these Niner guys say, we're going to win on first and second down and run the ball and run it effectively, Now you put the onus. Now Chris Jones is not that on pass rushes. He's not as effective because you watch him on pass downs. He splits double teams. He's in the backfield because he's so quick with his hands and he's got that first great step. Now, if you can wear him out and he's got to think run and he's got to play the run and now you move the pocket, that's what you got to do. You got to wear him out. You got to wear this defensive front out. You cannot just say, okay, we're going to sit and try to throw the ball, because that's when Kansas City starts to feast. I was down there in LA when I saw Kansas City and the Chargers and saw the way that game transpired. Chargers winning, drives all the way down to the 1 yard line, has an opportunity, and Kansas City, by just wearing them out, made the Chargers one-dimensional and have to just have a quarterback get back there and throw the ball for the whole game. When you do that, that's when Kansas City become deadly and almost unbeatable. If you have to just sit there and say, we have to throw the ball, I think the Niners run into a big buzzsaw and they have problems if they can't have success running the ball.
Well, and the Chargers only ran for 55 yards in that football game.
Right.
The Chiefs have not allowed a 100-yard rusher to this point this season. Against the Ravens, they gave up $185 on the ground, but a lot of that was to Lamar Jackson. Derrick Henry, who, by the way, leads the league in rushing, was relatively shut down by Kansas City. So they have done a very good job of keeping lead backs in check. So I'm 100% with you that if they can run for a century mark, if they can even get close to the century mark.
120, you got to get over 100. You need to beat Kansas City to get over 100. You're right. If you can get 125 is enough. If you get there for me, and not one play 70 yards, of course, it's 4 yards, 3 yards. And if you can do that, have 30 totes for 125 to 130, I think you switch the chances. I think you win that game if that happens.
Yeah, and good news for the 49ers. Of course, Jordan Mason is a full go. Obviously, he was banged up in the Seattle game and was dealing with some stuff. Isaac Guerendo stepped up. I think Guerendo's a capable back, but he doesn't give you the juice. He doesn't give you the
power,
the brunt force of Jordan Mason. And so, even though people have made, and Jake talked about it too, that where McCaffrey helps you could be in the red zone. He could be as a pass catcher. He's obviously a game breaker. But Jordan Mason does give something that I don't believe they've really had, because a lot of their running backs have been built on speed.
Right.
They've been able to beat you outside of the tackles. But Jordan Mason wins inside the tackles, and that's arguably where you have to beat Kansas City.
No question. You have to beat them inside the tackles, and you got to make Kansas City tackle you. When you got these arm tackles, Jordan Mason, he runs through arm tackles, and Guerendo does as well. So it's going to be big if these guys, how hard they run and run physical and make the Kansas City defense have to make a business decision and say, we got to stick our head in here and we got to tackle. That's going to be paramount for this offense, for their success. We know what Purdy can do, scrambling and making plays. I get that. But more so than any time this year, the running game is going to have to work, because like you talked about, Chargers had 50 yards. They haven't given up a 100-yard game, and guess what? They haven't hardly given up 100 yards, and like you talked about, Baltimore got over 100, and Baltimore at the end of the game had a chance to win it. The guy's foot out to the end zone. Yeah. You go look at teams that's had success running the ball. That was a game they could have lost. Now, if the Niners can run the ball and have over 100, 125, 130 yards rushing, you change the game. You change the game. If you have to sit there and you say, okay, yeah, we know that Purdy's going to throw the ball, and yes, he can throw it and be effective. But if they don't have over 125 yards rushing, I don't think they win this ball game. That's just my personal opinion.
No, I think you're right, and that's why. Look, this game is a game that psychologically the Niners we agree need more than the Chiefs. And look, I appreciate all those storylines of they got more urgency, they want to get revenge, but at the end of the day, it does come down to football. And the Kansas City Chiefs are still a damn good football team, and I'm sure every one of their opponents so far, the first 5 opponents that they've played, have felt like there have been opportunities to beat Kansas City. They haven't won a game by more than, I think, 9 points, or 7 points. Or, well, New Orleans they beat by 13. But I'm saying, like, the first 4 opponents of their season were single-digit victories.
Right.
I'm sure all of those opponents felt like there were chances for them in that football game. And that's the only thing I guess that gives me a little hesitation is I don't want to be sitting in that locker room or in that press conference room at the end of the game listening to Shanahan or Trent Williams or George Kittle say, we had those chances, but we couldn't use them. Because that's the one thing that's really been synonymous with KC is that when they get opportunities, they capitalize. Last year, I don't know if there's a moment that stands out to you from that Super Bowl, but for me, watching it back this week, Lo, it was the muff punt into the touchdown. The Niners are up 10-6. They had opportunities in the first half to go up by more. They didn't. Credit to the Chiefs. But 10-6, third quarter, Ray-Ray McCloud along with Darrell Luter Jr., they muff a punt. Next play, the Chiefs score a 13-yard touchdown, flip the script of the game, and all of a sudden, they're in control. Those are the kinds of plays that Kansas City takes advantage of. And unfortunately for the Niners, so far this season, they have not been able to do it as well.
No, you're absolutely right. And the missed field goal at the end of those games. So they're right there in these ball games, and that's the biggest thing. Can you finish? Can you find a way as a Niners team to say, you know what, we're going to win the championship round? That's it. That's what it's going to come down to. The Niners, if they're up by 3 or 4 in the fourth quarter with 3 minutes left, everybody in that stadium is not going to be feeling good because previous experience shown that they haven't fared well. And guess what? The guys on that team's not going to be feeling good because they've been in a Super Bowl where they're winning. They just need to stop, and they're up by 3 and feel in the Super Bowl to win the Super Bowl, and they couldn't get a stop. So we are creatures of habit. Sometimes we revert back to what we know and what we've seen, and that's what's big, and that's why this Niner team is good for the psyche. They know they can play with this Kansas City team. They know that they're just as good, if not better, as far as talent. They know that they can play with them. That's what they know. Mm-hmm. But they don't know if they can beat them. Yeah. That's the biggest thing that we have not seen. And I don't what, as I digress and talk, switch gears real quick. Our guy Tim told me a story today that this Tim.
This guy?
I go.
DJ.
My man Tim, he's my guy. Tim's a board. This man makes it happen. He sets everything up for us. So he and I were over at the stadium because you're flying in from Vegas, getting it in, getting crazy last night, crazy. I'm surprised you're here, but you're here. Bachelor party. You made it, and you sound good, and you look good. Your eyes are not red. You're not buzzing. Yeah, I know you weren't going to miss this, but I know
this. An hour ago, so different. But
you got you had the Visine, whatever you did. But you're pretty in the face. You're slim in the waist. You look good. Look like you slept a little bit. You're in Vegas. I don't know if I would have made it back today.
Emphasis on a little bit.
I don't know if I'd have made it back. So I'm over there and like, Tim, it's going to be a good game. He goes, man, I had, me and Tim, we go back, get 6, 7, 8, 9 years now. It's crazy how time flies. And his wife loved her to death. And she's a Bengal fan. I brought Icky on last year, a couple years back. Icky Woods come in here and, she's here and we have a good time and she's telling him how she loves the Bengals. She tells you. So he's just like, I feel good. We got him with the Niners win. I put my Niner flag out today. And his wife said, see that Niner flag, but you better tell me you bought a Cincinnati flag as well. I was like, I was dying. That's true story, right, Tim? True story. This is what his wife. So I mean, sometimes it's just, as I digress, think about how the fans and what they're feeling. We're talking about football. That's you and I talking about it. We know the players, they're in a different place because they're in it. They're in the game. We're outside talking about it, and people are listening to us. How about these fans? Where are these fans? You've talked to, I get to talk to Tim. You talk to different people and watching the fans. And where, what do they got to be thinking, especially about this matchup?
Well, it's funny you say that because naturally a lot of people flying in from Vegas this morning were flying in to this football game. I mean, just get off at San Jose International, and it's Chiefs fans, it's Niners fans, people coming in from the Midwest, making their connecting flights. I don't know if they were on red eyes. Right. I don't know if they were coming in early, coming off the bingo and craps table. I don't know what they were doing, but one of the airline pilots was also a KC fan, so he was talking messed up, like over the loudspeaker.
Oh, wow.
Hello, welcome everyone. This is Flight 152. We're going from Las Vegas to San Francisco. We're going to be making a pit stop in Santa Clara where the Chiefs will beat the 49ers.
Oh!
And just over the loudspeaker, and everyone's erupting, they're talking trash. So it's all in good fun, but I do wonder if there's a nervousness about it from the Niners side because you haven't beat them yet. You know you can, but you haven't. You can't say that you've officially taken the crown from the Kings. And right now the Kings are in Kansas City. And whether they're flying in from Vegas, whether they're flying in from Missouri, on the opposite side of the river in Kansas, wherever they're coming from, there is a lot of confidence on that side. And apparently there's a lot of confidence on my flight too.
Oh, no question. You just saw the big brother walking through right here. He had the Mahomes jersey
Is that
on.
Chris Jones?
Yeah, it looked like Chris.
Oh.
Exactly. It looks like Chris Jones. He's about 6'7". I mean, this big guy walking through. And he's got the Kansas City Chiefs jersey on. And you watch him walk through with the swag. You just saw, and it's crazy just to watch teams or watch a team if you're a Kansas City fan. And that's what kind of sparked this. You watch fans and you look at sometimes they're to me, Kansas City, they walk in here cocky, chest puffed out, like, look, we're coming in here to take your lunch money. We're going to take your cornbread. Ain't nothing you can do about it. And you watch the aura of the team. Their team, sometimes your fans, they have that same type of bravado. When you look at teams that are losing, you watch their fans, they'll come in with bags on their head. Mm-hmm. They'll come in like, oh, here we go again today. You just see it. It's a different, they expect to lose. You don't see that as the Niner fans today. No, they're they want to just get this monkey off their back. So it's Niners are a good team, but you see the fans, the Kansas City Chiefs fans, you just look at them, they take on the same type of bravado as their team does.
Well, and of course, we can see the faces on all of these 49ers and Chiefs fans right outside of the Hilton Santa Clara. It's a fantastic vibe. People are partying, having fun before the 125 kick between the Niners and the Chiefs. The Super Bowl rematch here in Week 7. Evan Giddings, Lorenzo, Neal. We'll take a break, be back on the Kickoff show on the other side, of course, as always, presented by Habas Law. If you've been wronged, Habas Law will fight to make it right. Call 1-800-INJURED or visit habaslaw.com. Call us, 888-957-9570. What do you feeling right now? If you're a Niners fan, are you feeling nervous? Are you dancing like a guy outside in a Jerry Rice jersey? Are you Patrick Mahomes gigging on the left? What are you feeling right now as you drive towards Levi's Stadium, or are you prepared to watch this football game between the Chiefs and the 49ers? 888-957-9570. We're back after this 95.7 The Game.
Now back to the Kickoff Show on 95.7 The Game.
Dude, I think Tim Jordan is right, Lo.
What's that?
I have never seen this many people dancing outside of the Hilton Santa Clara.
They are crunked out here. I'm telling you, you got the music flowing. I mean, you got to watch this. These people are out here. You even got Nick Chubb from the Browns out here getting crazy. I mean, this is absolutely a party. This place is lit. The football is here. This is a big game. You talked about it early, E, that how big this game is, and just you're talking about just the atmosphere. Take them through what this atmosphere is like today on Sunday with the Niners playing in Kansas City. Me and you, we've been here, but this one, man, it seems like it just takes the cake.
No, there's a lot more juice. Shout out Kyle Juszczyk in the building. There's a lot more going on outside. And again, stop on by. It's a great place to have a drink, enjoy a little bit of friends and family. Apparently, salsa dance with someone wearing a Nick Chubb jersey outside. They're having a great time. And not to say that there isn't always juice outside here, but there's something else in the building today because of who's in town. And it's a Super Bowl rematch. It's the Kansas City Chiefs. It's the San Francisco 49ers. It's the class of the NFC and the AFC for the last few seasons. The Niners individually have to still prove it this year. The Chiefs are the 5-0 team that someone needs to knock them off. Can the Niners do it? We'll see. But as far as the fans are concerned, I do feel like this is a big game. You know, we've been talking about all week how, all right, you lose this football game, well, you know, and then you're 3-4, and, you know, maybe you got to climb back up in the division, and the one seed's not looking good. All that as well. But if you're out here on Sunday, if you're driving out right now listening to your car, you're looking for a victory. You're looking for the letter W against a team that has done it to you far too often. And yes, you can't account for past sins. You can't right what was wrong, but you can still beat the team that is, to your point, taking your lunch more often than not.
No question. And that's why I'm feeling so good. I'm about to do the cubic shuffle. Down, do you? I mean, that's how they're jamming. I'm feeling the energy. The juice is going. Like you said, this team has beat you more often than not. And you're like, God, how do we figure this thing out? The crowd's feeling it. The energy's here. I'm telling you, this is going to be a showdown. I think this is going to be a classic game because of this, the Chiefs and the Niners. Because of you see what's been happening the last several years, these teams have gotten together. I think the Niners are due. I'm telling you, man, E, I'm just like so fired up. I'm trying to relax because I know we still got some time. But, man, for me as a player,
tune to these people.
I know
they've been burning calories since 9:30.
Oh, they have been amped out here. They're doing the cubic shuffle right now. Down, man, and I can to the left, to the left. Now kick. It's like as a player, when I'm driving in, these players, they drive into the stadium, or you take the bus to the stadium and you're escorted by the police, or if you're driving in, you got to be here 2 hours early, and you know they let you in, they see you, hey, they'll clear the lane for you. You feel different. People recognize you. I remember driving to the stadiums, wherever I was playing, wherever team that I was on, a home team, or they're driving or coming on a bus. I'm telling you, man, it's something that's inside of you as a player. You have to stay calm. Getting on that bus or driving my car and staying at the hotel the night before, getting up in the morning, going to chapel service, getting something to eat, getting inside where you're inside there eating breakfast before the game. You know, breakfast starts from like 7 to 9 or 7 to 10.
Most important meal of the day.
Yes, and you have that meal and you eat light. You don't go too heavy. You know, it's some fruit. It's a bowl of oatmeal, maybe a little eggs, and you're just like, I just had one pancake, not two, not three. Had that, a little bit of oatmeal, some fruit, lots of water. You know, drinking some hydrate, you get a little hydration, getting that in, taking my morning vitamins. And then, boom, after you eat, okay, then you head to chapel, and then you're like, okay, I'm going on an early bus. You get on that bus, and you're just driving over. You're not laughing. You're not freaking joking around on the phone. Man, you're in a different place. You have your playbook with you, and if you're on the bus, you're going over each play, and you're just going through the top 15. Because the night before, offensively, you go through the top 20 or top 15 or the dirty dozen, the plays you're going to go through. You walk through them, so coaches want you to know, visualize that. You take your test on Saturday, during the day. You have to turn it in that night. The coach gets it, grades it out. Your running back coach hands it to you. See what you did. Go over it. Hey, question mark here. What do you think here? So you go through. Then the hay's in the barn. And then you go through the walkthrough that night. And then that morning you get up and, man, you go to the chapel. You do your thing. You eat. And you're like getting ready to get on that bus. And you have your bags. And you get on the bus. And on the way over, you're driving through traffic. And you're watching the fans. And you're seeing everyone tailgate. And you watch. And you get to the stadium. You get out of your clothes. You know, you put on some shorts. You get ready. You sit in your little locker. You go over the plays again. When you put that playbook down and put it up, it's like, okay. So these guys over there, the game starts in, 2 hours, 12, almost 12 o'clock, in an hour and 20 or so. Guys are on the field. You start getting dressed. You get some shorts. You get tape. You say, okay, now I'm going to go out and just warm up. Without your pads on, you just wanted whatever, whether it's stretch. I had a ritual, or I had one of the trainers. He would always come in and do my neck. I'd get him to hold a towel, and I'd get on the edge of the bench. And he would do my neck, get all the muscles loosened up. Then I'd do a certain stretch. He'd push me side to side, get my body firing up. Then you walk out on that field, man. You have your headsets on. You got a certain music that you listen to. Hearts on fire, strong desire. I'm listening to some Rocky. I'm going through that vision quest. I love that. I'm outdating myself, but I love that music, and I loved it, and it would put me there. And then I would go with, a little Kurt Franklin. Make me clap my hands. I wanted to stomp. And I've been running my 4 laps, and I'm listening to my music. I'm getting a little lathered up. I got my shirt. I'm walking by, and I'm running by, and I see different guys. No, they nod at you. You nod at them. You ain't hugging. You ain't necessarily laughing. You might give them a, but you like, that's mine today. He mine today. You look at the linebacker. You look at the guys who you size it up. He mine today. You get warmed up, man. And you just start to, okay, cool. I got like an hour before kickoff. Now I got it going. You got a little sweat going. You lathered up. You know what this game means. You know how big it is. You know you got family in the stands. You know, hey, this team has owned you. You know what everyone's been saying all week. Why not us? And you've already had the media. You've been reading the paper, what everyone's been saying. Now it's like talking's over. You go back in that locker room. You get in, you're all sweaty because you just warmed up. Get undressed. You shower. You take that shower, wash off the sweat. You're like, man, let me get that. This is my ritual. I would get friggin' showered, soap up, because then I'm getting ready to go to work. When you go to work in the morning, you take a shower, brush your teeth, do all those things. I redid everything. Took a shower, already was sweating. My body's nice and loose. I went in that shower, got in the cold shower, cooled off, got in. I get taped. Then I put on my shorts. I'd walk in the training room, get taped. The big fella get the tape, go ahead and get all taped up and say, okay, now I'll get your pads. You already have your jerseys already over your shoulder pads because it's tight. Now you start putting on your gladiator outfit. It looked like you're getting ready to go to fight then, baby. You start feeling, you're like, okay, here we go. Now you start putting on your pads. You hear the guy, you hear your strength coach say, early outs, RBs, offensive line, out in 10. You're like, oh, good God. So now you go, and I found me a little hiding place, and I go find me a little quiet place where no one's out. I would drop on my knee and say, Lord, just protect me. I don't need you to give me victory. Just protect me and let me do what I know that I can do, what you've given me the power to do. And then, man, you hear like 4 minutes. Man, go in there and see the doctor. I'd get that little Toradol, that little extra shot. Woo! Give him that energy. That's him, because I knew I was going to bang some heads, and I knew I was going to be physical out there. And I'd get that Toradol shot. And then I knew I had that T in me. And I was like, okay, let's go. And you walk down that tunnel. Remember, me and LT would walk down. He said, all right. I tell him, look at him, I say, get on my hip and don't dip. Let's ride, Daddy. Call out the dogs and piss on the fire. Let's go. And you walk out, and then you run out, and the crowd's already out there. And then you're in full pads, and now you run out. Boom, now you're offense, defense. You start going through your drill, your coach, and you're like, you just looking. And your mind is just, you ain't talking to no one. You already know what you're doing. Coach says, go. You catching, pat and go. You get the receivers, pat and go. You're doing the pat and go. That's where you get in the line. The quarterback throw the ball. You loosen it up. Then you break down after that. You get a team. Getting ready to go team. Then after your team, the field goal team get out there. You kick a field goal. You go back in that locker room. And then you got like 10 minutes before you come out. That time, man, is just like you get your water. You just sit back in your locker. Guys aren't saying nothing. No one's even talking. It's quiet as a church mouse in there. Everyone's just getting their mind right, doing their last thing. Might look at your book one more time, but everyone's just quiet, and you're thinking about your assignment. It's quiet. No one's yelling. It's not a bunch of crazy stuff going on. It's just okay. And then they say, all right, 2 minutes before we go. Teams get together. We say the Lord's Prayer as a team. You get up. Now the music comes on. You get in that tunnel, and here we go. And you're getting ready to walk on that field. Now the stadium's completely full. That's what I love. And then when you come out, you look out and you hear it. Yeah, and man, it's like you're a gladiator walking out on that field. And it's like, now it's time. Now it's time, baby. So that's what I'm looking for. I mean, today when I'm watching these fans and I'm watching this stuff, man, it just took me back into that moment and what the process was like. And then, man, you still feel it. Then you have the national anthem, all that stuff that's going around. You know, man, depends on who sings, man. You feel it, the tears, and you know, because you're blessed to be able to play this game. You're a grown man playing a kid's game, getting a king's ransom, and you're getting ready to go play against other men that want to take you, that's going to take your job, that's trying to destroy you, that's trying to beat you, that think they're tougher than you, think that they can break your will. You getting ready to go out there and say, it's me today. I'm beating you. You are not beating me. I'm beating you. That's what it's about. And you still got a little bit of nerves. And then once that ball's kicked off and you go out, then it's a calm. It all goes away, and it's like, now I'm in my arena. Now I'm playing football. Now I'm doing what I love to do, and it's a peace, and it's a calmness that comes over. But all that stuff leading up to it, it's the nerves, the body, the anticipation until it starts, and then you're in your moment. That's what this is about today, bro.
Well, and that's how you know that this game is massive.
Right.
Lorenzo Neal just got taken back 15, 20 years into the chamber. And you did this for such a long time, too. This was every single Sunday.
Every single Sunday.
Every 7 days this ritual was going down. And that's the kind of thing. I'm sure sometimes it's, you know, maybe, all right, an opponent's a little bit lighter. It's not as big of a game as a Super Bowl rematch. It's not as big of a game as Patrick Mahomes coming to town. But these games, these specific kinds of games, that's why people have been dancing for 2 hours.
Oh, yeah.
That's why Lowe is ready to get another Toradol shot. That's why.
I know. I'm like, hey, you see me over here fidgeting. I'm like, man, what I would wish to go back in time for a game like this, Tim. I mean, just to be able to walk on that field like this day today, when you see the crowd and just the energies here, man, I miss this game. I miss it.
Well, and that's why when you hear earlier in the week, and I understand it's, you know, they got to talk to the media and after practice, and players are basically giving us the coach speak, right? Well, it's just another game. You know, it's not actually this and that. But and I might believe it on Tuesday. I might believe it on Wednesday. Might even believe it on Thursday. But when you get to Sunday, and you know this, but even being able to go down and talk to these players after the game, win or loss, you can tell what it takes out of them, not just physically, but mentally when they play an opponent like this. And so that's one of the reasons that I'm excited about this game. Yes, I want to see who wins between the San Francisco 49ers and the Kansas City Chiefs. But I also want to go into the depths of Levi's Stadium after the game. I want to get down there on the field before the game. Feel what it's like and what these players are preparing to put themselves through and what they're prepared to talk about afterwards, because it is an emotionally draining sport unlike any other, which I personally know nothing about, but just from hearing your soliloquy, have just a glimpse into what it takes just to get ready for that moment. And that's why I feel like all these fans are so excited today.
Oh, no question, man. They are. And that was just one of those moments, man, because there's, you know, you get excited and, you know, I'm back in reality. I can't go out there and play. Gosh darn it, I wish I could. I thought for a minute there was getting ready. Hope that, you know, Coach Shanahan heard that speech and like, all right, let's go get Neal out here for one play and watch him fall apart after the play. Yeah, he'd be crying, come pick him up off the field. But yeah, it's just that moment. And yeah, so I get what these fans are feeling. I get what these players are feeling. Anxiety that they you have in anticipation, especially a game of this magnitude. And you know, hey, you know, it's even big because you know our boy Tim got the sign. Like he said, he's now, since I said that, now he's ordering his wife a Cincinnati Bengals a flag as well. So you just know how big this is and the magnitude of this game. Yes, if the Niners lose this game, is at the end of the season? No. But I'm going to tell you right now, it still hurts. It hurts as a fan. You watch these fans when they leave here and some of them, they just, you know, head down and just upset. And man, I don't care. It's still, I know it's a game. I know this isn't the end of the season, but I'm telling you, it's the bragging rights. It's to get the monkey off your back. It's to say, look, we won this game. It's to feel better because you can't never, even though no matter what, the only thing will get rid of this taste is to beat them in the Super Bowl. But right now, to have this satisfaction, this gratification right now, today, I'm telling you, man, it goes a long ways for the team. It goes a long ways for the players. It goes a long ways for the front office. Goes a long way for the coaches. It gives the fans a little more swag. It gives the players a little more swag. It makes the injuries go away. It just makes guys understand that being sore, it's okay to be sore. That's what this game does. That's what this win does for this team, man. It just gives them an emotional boost that they need.
Well, and conversely, you know, obviously we would love the Niners to win this football game. A loss also, of course, doesn't kill your season. You got a big game next week at home against Dallas. You still got a chance if you lose this game to end at the bye 4-4, and they've made plenty of deep postseason runs at that juncture in years past. But it's that big brother, little brother type of battle right now. And the little brother is getting older, maybe hit puberty, starting to hit the weight room a little bit, getting a little larger. But the big brother always has that psychological advantage, that knowledge of knowing that I've pinned you 18 times since we've been alive each and every year on your birthday. I'm coming, and you can't stop it. And so that's what I feel like the Niners are right now. They are the Kansas City Chiefs' little brother. And that's why I would like to see them win this football game more than anything else, is the fact that they can finally say that they did go up and whoop Big Bro. It's not gonna bring home the rings, but a loss to me also, it's I guess confirmation of what we're afraid of what, like, the reason for the nervousness, the reason for the tension, which eventually will build, and probably, you know, in an hour or so, and maybe around 1 o'clock before the 1:25 kick, that tension will begin to settle in, and that nervousness maybe on the third down in the second quarter, right, the 2-minute drill right before the half, the third quarter with the way that this team's been playing, some of the second half jitters. I think a lot of fans will begin to feel that, but for right now, the vibe is good, and then once the game starts, all that extra anxiety you were talking about begins to rush in.
Oh, no question. You talked about the big brother, and it's crazy that you're sitting here telling this story. And I remember being in high school, man, and, my freshman year, went to the Valley. I took second in the Valley. My brother was 2 years ahead of me. He didn't necessarily place that year. The second year, I'm a sophomore. I go to the state. He missed the state, and he was a go. But he always could beat me. He's 2 years older than my brother, Eddie. And, but it's a big brother mentality. And probably my sophomore year, I thought and I knew that I probably could beat him, but because he was older than my bigger brother, we'd wrestle and go at it, and he would barely win. But I knew I was holding back. Yeah. I knew because he had the psychological edge on me, and until I was like, when I got my senior year high school, he's in college, and then he wrestled in JC. And my freshman year, I lived on, Lemoore out there in the country. We lived on the farm, and we're out there in the summertime and doing some irrigating, and there's a ditch back there, and we're out there in the field, in the middle of the field, and he grabs me, and I knew that I could have took him my sophomore year, and my junior and senior year, and I knew, but I was in college, and I dirted him. I got him, picked him up, dropped him, had him. He said, "Oh man, stop! Let's stop." But it was because I let it go, and it was tired of saying, "Oh, I got it. Can I beat him?" It was like, I knew the Niners got to let it go. The Niners are a better team than Kansas City. They have better receivers. You have a better pass rush. Now, Kansas City's defense, statistically, right now, their defense looks better. Let's be real. Yeah. But if you talk about would I rather have the Niners offense or Kansas City offense, let's be real. The Niners offense is better. And linebackers, the Niners linebackers better. They haven't played like they're capable. You got to let this go and say, I'm tired of this big brother. I know that I can beat my big brother. I got to quit saying, oh, well, this is supposed to happen. I'm supposed to just, I'm keeping this close. Should we do that? No, stop. It's time to say, no, big brother. No, I know you're bigger, whatever you might have won, but I can beat you. And that's what this team, they have to do that. If they do that and play like they're capable with all the talent and the guys they have, their best is good enough. They just have to play good football, don't make less mistakes than Kansas City, win the turnover battle, and they beat their big brother today.
Well, and let's just take the two offenses, for example, because I think it's a perfect illustration of why it's so hard to have an objective conversation in football. The Niners offense, objectively, has performed better than the Kansas City Chiefs offense this season. But if you bring that up to anybody, they'll say, well, how can you take Purdy over Mahomes? How can you take Kittle over Kelce? How can you take anybody? How can you take Shanahan over Reed? The offense is constructed by the holy trinity of Andy Reid, Patrick Mahomes, and Travis Kelce. But as a whole, the running game, the receivers, the skill position players in combination with the quarterback, with the offensive line. Though they've had some struggles up front, Kansas City doesn't have perfect tackles on the outside. They hold more than anybody in football. We'll see if they throw the flags today. My point is, objectively, the Niners have performed better offensively. But when you bring that up to somebody, they can throw the Mahomes, the rings, the losses in your face. That's another reason why a win today would be big. Also just for football conversations, because we can finally talk about these two teams as they are and not just what their record says they are against each other.
No question. And that's the part where they say Mahomes throw more interceptions than Purdy. Now, is Mahomes maybe a little faster? Maybe.
Yeah.
I don't think he's quicker. If they go 10 yards, Purdy's got one of the fastest 10 yards in the league. As far as quarterback. So you talk about scrambling. Now, Mahomes might be a little bit more elusive, but Mahomes can scramble just as well. Mahomes can get out of the pocket and create and run, pick up more yards running. You go look at who's got more rushing between Mahomes and Purdy. Go look now. Mahomes, yeah, he can throw. He can throw the ball probably better. He can do those things better. But is it by a landslide? No. Purdy can run the ball. Purdy's probably has more rushing yards than him.
He does.
Purdy is friggin' electrifying. He can scramble. He can get in and out of places. He's deadly with his legs. So now, of course, I think Mahomes is a better quarterback. I think he's the best quarterback in the league. But let me tell you that Purdy is not like, no, Purdy, man, is efficient. And Purdy can do what he has to do. I think Purdy can outplay him. I really believe. And not that he's better, but Purdy does a lot more. He has to do a lot more for the Niners to win than Mahomes has to.
Well, and if you'd like to answer our question from earlier, again, our 49ers Insider Jake Hutchinson joined us. Low asked him the question, who do you think is going to throw for more yards, Brock or Patrick? Is it going to be Purdy? Is it going to be Mahomes? There's some other things that we can throw your way as we move forward here. 888-957-9570. We got about an hour and 15 left until we're going to be off the air, taking you up until 1:25, the kickoff between the Niners and the Chiefs. Also, make sure to tap in after the game, after the final whistle for overtime with Mark Grandy, Sterling Bennett, and Kyle Madsen. They'll be breaking this thing down for you. The biggest regular season game of the season for the 49ers as the Kansas City Chiefs come to town to Levi Stadium here this weekend. This is the Kickoff Show presented by Habas Law. If you've been wronged, Habas Law will fight to make it right. Call 1-800-INJURED or visit habaslaw.com. I do want to dig deeper into these offenses and really dissecting how good this Kansas City Chiefs team really is. They're 5-0. Should they be? Have they a chance? Should they be 6-0 at the end of the day? I think there's a real conversation to be had about how good this team is in comparison, of course, to the 49ers. We'll continue that as we move on the Kickoff Show live from the Hilton Santa Clara. Stop by, grab a brew, say what's up. Lorenzo, Neal, Evan Giddings back after this 95.7 The Game.
Now back to the Kickoff Show on 95.7 The Game.
Oh, we got a little over an hour left until the kickoff between the Chiefs and the 49ers. We're just having a good time at the Hilton Santa Clara.
That we are, baby. That
So
we
are
are.
people outside.
They are jamming.
I'm jealous, man.
They are absolutely jamming. The drinks are flowing. The partying has happened. People are walking through the lot over here partying. I mean, we're at the Hilton, and it is absolutely a party tonight. It's a party at 12 o'clock, and everyone's getting it in. It's great, man. This is a great atmosphere. These fans, both teams' fans, they're just ready for this big game today.
Well, and so, we were talking about earlier, flew over from Sin City this morning. A lot of Chiefs fans on the flight coming into San Jose. I actually talked to one of these Chiefs fans outside, just walking through the lobby.
Yeah.
A lot of really easygoing, nice people coming from KC. Very respectful, not very confident.
Yeah.
feeling pretty good about a 5-0 Chiefs team coming here and getting a victory against the 3-3 San Francisco 49ers. But very respectful, love the 49ers and what they do. There's not a lot of disdain from the Kansas City Chiefs sides of things. Now, I don't know if that's because of the big brother mentality that we talked about in the preceding segment, but I wonder how much. It also doesn't feel like there's a ton of disdain necessarily for the Chiefs outside of the fact that they've beaten the 49ers a bunch. Like, I don't know how many 49ers fans hate Patrick Mahomes. I think they hate the fact that he's beaten them twice in the Super Bowl, but I don't know how much they hate him. And I don't feel the hate, honestly, from the other side either. Right now, it just feels like the vibes are positive, they're good, and most importantly, they're competitive, which is what we're all looking forward to today. We're looking for a competitive, great football game between two very good teams.
Yeah, you really are. You see guys out there trying to hike the ball, act like they're playing quarterback, running routes out here. It's pretty crazy watching this. But no, you see it, man. You got the Chiefs fans. They're having good. Niner fans are trying to bid. It's crazy. They're chest bumping out there. So Big Brother's like throwing guys off of them. I mean, they got the drinks flowing. We threw out some balls out there today, and these little miniature footballs. And so people caught balls, and they're out there. They're playing catch out there. Yeah. It's just a great atmosphere. It's going to be a big game. Like you said, I don't see a lot of animosity between these fans. I think it's just about, hey, look, they both love their teams. Both these two teams are pretty electrifying. Both these teams have been winning, and they've been winning for a while. One team's gotten over the hump, and one team hasn't. But even the team that hasn't, it's still been good football. You've been in a place for the last 5-6 years. You've been in playoffs. You've been to Super Bowls. You've been to championship games. You've been in one game from the Super Bowl. You've been in AFC championship games. You've been in the playoffs. You have done things that a lot of teams wish they could have done. Even though you don't got the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow, you make it almost to the end of the rainbow, and the other team has took your pot of gold at the end of the rainbow, but you've been there. So that's why you still see a great deal of joy out of these Niner fans and Niner faithful, because of the fact they've been there and they're still there.
They are, and a lot of those faces are on this team. Obviously, McCaffrey is not, and that is certainly a big name. I'm not exactly sure when and if he's going to return and at what strength, but the 49ers can't really depend on that right now.
No.
I mean, one thing I remember watching earlier this week about the Super Bowl is just how dynamic 23 was in that game. And I understand he had the fumble in the first drive, which unfortunately kind of, I think, stalled what could have potentially been a scoring drive for them.
At least 3.
But exactly. But he had 160-yard scrimmage, passing, running about even. I mean, he is an unbelievable player and was in that football game. I think maybe the best player on the field on the San Francisco 49ers side of things, but they don't have that anymore. And I don't know if it's him they're necessarily missing, or the energy and just the ability to make things easier on everybody else. But that's where this game is also a test, because you're 3-3. I think the teams that they've lost to outside of Minnesota are not that good. I also think the teams that they've beaten, maybe outside of Seattle, are not that good. This is the real deal, and it also begins the stretch in their season low where they begin to play playoff-bound teams. They get the best of the best this week, but then you get Dallas. After the bye, you get Tampa. Then you get Green Bay. You get Buffalo towards the end. Chicago, who's a 4-win team right now. There's a lot of really good football teams coming up for the 49ers, so I also think this matchup will give us an insight as to how good the 49ers truly are.
It really does. It just gives you that. It's like we keep concluding to. It's like a beating a broken record. this is a game that you want to win for your confidence. This is a game you want to win for your fans, but most of all, you just want to win it for your psyche. You want to win this for yourself. You've been playing against the Kansas City Chiefs that's had your record. It's a game, I think that there's two teams that right now that you say, God, Lee, that they've had their record, had their Niners number. One team's had their number at their house.
Yeah.
That's Kansas City at their house and anywhere. That's Kansas City has owned the Niners. But in Minnesota, last 8 games they played in Minnesota, haven't won there. I think those are the two teams that you say, wow, who would we like to beat? And think about it. Minnesota, the way that they're playing football, you're a Niner team. You're going to have to go on the road. If you're going to get to the Super Bowl and if you're going to have to do some things, the teams that you need to beat, you might have to play them again this year. You might have to play Minnesota because the way that they're playing, you might have to play them in an NFC Championship game.
You might have to go to Minnesota.
That's what I'm saying. You might have to go to a place where you haven't been able to win. So that's another thing that I think this game is big for just your confidence to show that you can beat a team. It's only 2 undefeated teams in the league, Kansas City and Minnesota. You have a chance right now to knock one of the undefeated teams off. So I think that's a little bit more incentive as well.
And we could table the 49ers side of things for a moment because right before the break, we were talking about just how good the Chiefs really are. And I know that we were talking about this before the show. Kansas City is 5-0, and they have the respected defending champs. But watching as many games as I have, this does not, to me, seem like the Kansas City Chiefs team even of last year. They turned it on at the end, and they made a postseason run that was incredible, and it was very impressive. They went on the road, won, beating Buffalo, the Ravens, then obviously beating the 49ers. They're 5-0, but I'm still not yet sure how good this team really is. I know they have a great defense. They obviously have a great quarterback. But Travis Kelce hasn't looked like himself so far this season. Is that because he's on a pitch count? Is it because he's saving himself for later in the year? Is it because the Chiefs know that the best football they need to play is far in front of them, and they just need to do what they have to do to get by and get these wins and then stack them and go on to the next week? I don't know. But I have not been as impressed through 5 games so far of the Kansas City Chiefs this year as I have of the previous iterations. I don't know how you feel.
No, I feel the same way, but I kind of watch some of the tape and watch some of the games. Travis Kelce's open a lot more than Mahomes is giving him the ball. And I think it's a good thing because Mahomes is like, you know what? I know who I can depend on. And we know Travis Kelce is a guy that he can depend on. But think about what they're able to do now, not force-feeding Travis Kelce, because he wants guys in those moments to step up. And other guys, because they're now no-name guys, have been stepping up, and they're still 5-0 without the dominant play of Travis Kelce. Travis Kelce played unbelievable last year, but now, watch, everyone's like, what's wrong with Travis Kelce? He still had he had a game or two here this year, but it isn't his numbers as. And that's because a lot of times he's open, and Mahomes chose not to go to him because they have another tight end, they have other players, and it shows you how diverse and show you how good this team can be. So kudos to Mahomes for saying, look, I'm not going to depend on this guy like I always depend on this guy, and letting the others help win games. And I think that shows you that, that other guys can beat you, and Mahomes can beat you with other guys.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think Mahomes understands he can take a back seat, to what this team needs, which is like the Kansas City Chiefs, if they score 25 points, they're going to win most football games.
Yeah.
I think the Niners, the magic number for them, and really since Purdy's gotten here, has been 27. When they score 27 points or more, they win 95% of their games. I just wonder if they can get to 27 against this Kansas City defense, because Mahomes, sometimes he doesn't even need to score 20.
Right.
Sometimes he doesn't even have to get. They held the New Orleans Saints, who have come down a little bit, but they got a decent offense.
Right.
And had their starting quarterback for most of that football game, they only scored 13 points. So the Kansas City Chiefs defense, I think, is the strength of this football team, and is going to test the Niners offense, because I believe that's the strength of theirs.
Yeah, I totally agree, and I think the number's 24. if the first one to 24, if the Niners can get to 24, whoever gets to 24 first. So if you can get there first and be at 24, the first one 24, I believe, wins this game. I really believe the Niners can hold this team under 24. I think that's the number. You're not playing, you're still playing against a team that's not running the ball great. Kansas City Chiefs is not running the ball great. Their backup running backs, they put the ball on the turf. The ball has been on the ground. So you're going to have some times, you're going to have some opportunities to get some turnovers. I really believe the Niners can win this game if they win the turnover ball. I think the turnover battle is going to be huge, in this game today.
Well, and I mean, the Chiefs, they will give you the ball.
Right. Right.
Patrick Mahomes has thrown 6 interceptions in 5 games this year. They've had fumbles, but again, their defense has not turned those turnovers, not allowed those turnovers to turn into points. Meanwhile, they're a team that when they get an inch, they take a mile. And so that's how they have been able to win those 5 games, in my opinion. Whether it's a shoelace against Baltimore. Right. You're moving it. They were down 10-0 to the Chargers, scored 17 unanswered against that team. The Falcons game came down to the wire, potentially should have lost that game. The Bengals was a late call, ended up making a late field goal, 26-25. They have been vulnerable against good teams. I do think the Niners are good. I don't think they've proved it yet so far this season, but I do think that they have more in them, and they have not yet shown us who they truly are. And so that's why against the Chiefs teams, the Chiefs will let you in this football game. They might even spot you a score early in this football game. But can the Niners do what I still, even against Seattle, do not truly believe they have, which is close a football game and play a full second half in all 3 phases of successful, balanced football? They have not yet to do it.
Yeah, I totally agree. If I tell you, give me one word that is either negative or positive about the Niners, just one word. If I told you that, what word comes to mind? I have one while you're thinking. Mine would be inconsistency. That's the one word that if you said, give me the Niners, inconsistent. That's how and think about it. Special teams, you gave up a kickoff return. Defense, what you've allowed in the running game. Offense, up and down at times. I think it's the inconsistent. If this team is consistent, they're a tough out.
Well, and that's why it's been hard to assess where they stand even in the NFC, because there's a lot of good teams in the conference. Last year, the NFC was relatively top-heavy, somewhat weak overall. This year, the script is flipped. The AFC looks like the conference that outside of the Chiefs doesn't have a ton of contenders. Maybe Baltimore, Houston looks really good to start their season, but we're not really sure how many of those teams beyond the top 3 or 4 can make a run. In the NFC right now, it does look wide open, and a big reason is because the Niners have been a 500 football team so far. But, Washington has an upstart young quarterback. They're a much different group. Minnesota obviously is looking good. The Detroit Lions, I think, have reason to believe that they can make a deep run this year, even though they just lost their best edge rusher in Aiden Hutchinson.
That's big.
The Green Bay Packers have a pretty damn good quarterback, and Jordan Love doesn't look like he's having a second full starting season slump. I mean, even the Chicago Bears are decent. The Philadelphia Eagles, I also think if they can get healthy, they have a reason to believe that they can make some noise. So everyone, the NFC South, Tampa Bay, who the Niners are going to face in a couple of weeks, look good. If I was to ask you where you see the Niners in the NFC, does the inconsistency hold you back from saying they're one of the top dogs right now?
Oh, no question it does. I think they'd have a tough out against the Commanders right now. Commanders, because they got a mobile quarterback, a guy who can move around. Their offensive line gives him some protection. You look at the Commanders and what they're doing. I think Green Bay right now would give them fits because Green Bay can run the ball and they can score, and they're playing pretty decent on defense. So I look at them. Tampa's kind of hit or miss, inconsistent. I like the quarterback, what he's been able to do, but I'm not necessarily sold on necessarily Tampa Bay. I think they could be beaten. The Saints, no. You look at you talk about Detroit. I think huge losing Hutch, what he brings as a pass rusher, Hutchinson, what he brings as a pass rusher. And it's sorry to see a guy that type of injury to that type of player, because it's going to be a hard sledding to get back to that type of performance that he was at, because the way that thing broke. But when you think about, so when I look at that, I have the Niners right now. I don't think they're top 4 teams. I think they're probably 5.
Yeah.
I mean, you look at it, the Commanders shown what they've shown you. You can't take the Niners against them. I think a team that I think the Niners probably still could beat. I'm not sold on Philadelphia. Just inconsistency. Minnesota, yeah, I think Minnesota has been able to, do what they do. Green Bay. So I think right now, if you look at Minnesota, Green Bay, and those three teams right now, you would have to, and the Commanders, I think you give them a clear edge over the Niners.
Do you think that the Aiden Hutchinson injury is as significant as the Christian McCaffrey injury in terms of impact and how it changes their football team?
I think it does on a defensive schematic things, because what he does to that defense, you got to account for him, the pass rusher. He makes everyone else better, because now guys, they don't have to double. Now you're not doubling people necessarily up front. What he brought to that team, sometimes you had to double team him. You had to know where he was at. Because he's got such a good get off. And what Aiden did, now you don't have to keep the tight end in. The running back had to stay in. Sometimes you had three guys on him. So now who else is going to make plays? So I think this is big loss as McCaffrey, because of the fact what he does to the other guys on that defense. And that's why McCaffrey is such a big loss, even though you have Mason that can run the ball, probably more physical running the ball. But what the stress that you put on the other guys, because McCaffrey made you play zone, you had to bracket him because he was a receiver in the backfield. He knows how to run a route and read it, know how to sit down. You watch him on third down, what Purdy would go to because of McCaffrey in the passing game. Like I said, he's too fast for linebackers and just too physical for safeties. His wheel route, the things that he could do, how he could stretch the field, and he's so fast. He runs by safeties, runs by linebackers. So yes, and that's what he did. He made the others better. He opened up He opened up Debo, opened up other guys, because at times you had to bring a safety down to guard him, and so now you couldn't roll a safety and double bracket coverage two of your receivers. So what McCaffrey did, now you can, hey, look, we can cover the other running backs with just a linebacker. So now we can drop back into coverage. So you make it's people don't understand the nuances of football, what one player can mean and what one player can do to an offense or a defense, because of the impact they have on the other parts of the whole.
Well, and that's why last week the impact on everything else around him from someone like Nick Bosa, I thought was a bit understated. Hey, you can throw the pressure rate and the numbers out there and whatnot, but when you watch the game, you see the first drive, Seattle's moving the ball. Nick Bosa makes a big play to get to the backfield. He forces an errant throw from Geno Smith that turns into an interception. He doesn't get credit for the pick. He doesn't get credit for the sack. Doesn't get credit for the quarterback hit. But he, in my opinion, forced that turnover that the Niners got. Later in the game, there's an opportunity where Geno Smith, again, they're coming back into this football game, down 20, get a special teams touchdown. They're right back in it. They're driving. Nick Bosa is able to help them get off the field on third down late in that second half. And then, of course, he also is in the mind of Geno Smith whenever he's dropping back, whenever Geno's trying to move the ball downfield. And Patrick Mahomes is a different character, but just last week, it did feel like Geno Smith was hearing footsteps, and I think a big part of that was because of 97. So the reason why I asked that question is because I feel like Aiden Hutchinson, maybe overall, it's hard to equate with McCaffrey, but it would be like if the Niners lost Nick Bosa. I know he hasn't performed maybe as well as Hutchinson has this year in certain categories, but the Niners, the rest of their defensive line, Leonard Floyd is a big offseason addition. Hasn't been that guy so far this season. Malik Collins, who they got from the Texans, has been good, but he hasn't been great against the run. Their interior has been a little bit softened by injuries. Nick Bosa is, in a lot of ways, what I think is holding that defensive line together, and he has really since he stepped in the building in 2019, but specifically this season without as much help this year, he is the key to what they're able to do. And I think a big reason, if they're to win this football game, is going to be how he impacts and makes everybody else's job easier trying to impact Mahomes.
Oh, no question. And I think that you'll see Nicky's one of his another finest hours. I mean, he's had a couple extra days to rest. You're going to see, Freddie and all these guys running around. Nick Bosa is going to have an impact on this game, just like Chris Jones is going to have an impact on the game. I think we say, okay, two players got to have an impact on this game for both teams. Who's going to play the best between those two guys? I know we keep talking about Mahomes and Purdy, but defensively, who's going to have the better game interior? which interior defensive line is going to have the best game? Is it Jones or is it Bosa? If Bosa can get more sacks, more pressure, do the things he can do, and be more disruptive, then I think that gives the Niners another edge. If Jones can do that for his team and be more disruptive than Nicky, I think that gives them an edge. So these two playmakers, which offenses can shut that playmaker down on defense? I totally agree with you what Nicky Bosa brings to the table, but what this guy does, Nick, because Jones is interior, he plays the 3 technique, he can play defensive end, he can go line up over the nose guard, and it line up over the center and put another guy over the guard and put him in the 3 technique. So 3 technique means he's playing the outside shoulder of the guard, and then you have Jones lined up over the center, and now there's another guy, so it's an over or under defense, and now Jones knows that he has a guy over the guard, so now the guard can't help and block down, and now Nick creates that one. Now you have Jones blowing one-on-one. That's a problem. So you're going to look for Spags to say, how do I create that one-on-one matchup with Jones? And you say, okay, well, we know we're going to slide or move to, and then he just watch Jones. He'll wait till the offense declare, and then he'll go to where that bubble side is. He'll go to where that guy's over the guard, and he says, okay, this is where I'm coming because I'm going to create my one-on-one matchup. And guys just say, whenever he wants to play DN, he has the ability to play up and down that defensive line predicated on what he sees as a defensive lineman because he's that much of a disruptor.
Well, is that something that was even possible when you were playing? Like, it does feel like nowadays guys just search for matchups. You know, the Myles Garretts, the Max Crosbys, the Bosas, the Joneses. They can just tap a guy on the hip and say, I want him. But is that somewhat of a recent development? I don't feel like that was there even 5 years ago.
No, it's been the last 5 to 10 years. Guys have been able to do that. You say, okay, look, this is what we're going to do. We want to make sure where the pressure is and who do we have to create that one-on-one matchup. How are we going to get our guys one-on-one? So I'm going to either set the defense where it gives him a one-on-one, or if the offense says no, we're not going to let you set the defense where it gives him a one-on-one. Then I make my defensive my playmaker go. He can put himself in that place, whether it's on the left side or right side. So now the offense can't dictate how they do it, because what the offense is used to do is say, okay, whatever side this guy's lined up to, boom, that's what we're going to do. We're going to slide the protection, do something like that on the defender. But now, since he just stands up and he waits for you to get lined up, now it's like, okay, wherever the bubble is, now I'm going to that side. So now he moves over and creates that one-on-one matchup, and that's what makes it tough, and that's what makes it hard, because now you're trying to switch and you're saying, okay, let's just all slide one way, and you hit miscommunication because guys don't understand what's going on. Because when you do slide that way, now you have that guard trying to slide down to block him, and now they have a stunt, so they're looping, and so where you're sliding to, you're blocking an empty guy, and that's why you have that looper coming scot-free, because of the fact you're trying to do too much, because you're trying to create that blocking scheme to block up Nick, to Jones, and when you do that, sometimes you're blocking error because they have a game on, and because now he can come free. So you have to be a man-to-man's got to find a way to be able to block your guy. Because if not, Spags is going to find a way to loop him into guys when they say we're sliding this way and this is we're sliding protection to him. Now, if he's looping away from the protection, so when you're sliding down, he's looping away from that protection to an unblocked guy or to a one-on-one matchup. He creates it because of front. So it is really, really hard for offenses to get set to try to take away the dominant defensive players that have the ability to move around up and down the offensive line.
And a lot of playmakers, obviously, on both sides of the football for these two teams, and it's why it's a Super Bowl rematch. It's why everyone is going to have their eyes on Levi Stadium in just about an hour. 1:25 kick, and we're breaking it down here on the Kickoff Show presented by Habas Law. If you've been wrong, Habas Law will fight to make it right. Call 1-800-INJURED or visit habaslaw.com. That's Lorenzo. Neal. My name is Evan Giddings. When we move forward, we got, again, a little bit less than an hour. I do want to talk about someone in Ricky Pearsall on the other side, because I think he's been one of the most inspirational stories for the 49ers this season. He's going to be making his debut. There's a lot of good young talent on the field for the Chiefs, for the 49ers, but Ricky Pearsall, I think, deserves to have a conversation about as we move forward. Also going to broaden the topic to the rest of the NFL. A lot of good games going on right now. A lot of competitive games in division, in conference, and we got that for you as we move along here on the Kickoff Show on the other side, all right here on 95.7 The Game. We're back after this.
The Game.
Was Clashes in session?
Yeah, you like that, huh? You like that? You know, me and the guy over here, we get it in. Come on, this is my guy. We talk a little football, a little X's and O's.
Well, so that's exactly what you're breaking down. Lorenzo and Neal, Tim Jordan here, always on side with us, does a fantastic job.
Jordan.
So, Tim, you had just a question about a specific defensive alignment, and then Lowe took you to school. Like it was like just sitting here watching film study. except we didn't have the whiteboard.
Right. So Tim was asking, what do I watch when I'm watching football? It's a great question. Then I'll let you get into these scores because I want to get around the league and see who's winning. I got my survivor pool. I need Bills to just win, baby. You know, pull things up to about 25,000 K. Everyone put in $200. Got like 300 people in this pool.
Oh wow!
Yeah, survivor pool. So
especially this season, that's pretty late. There's been a lot of upsets.
This is a second pool. I missed the first one. I missed the first one. My buddy won the first one. I think he won $80,000. So this second one, you know. So I said, let me jump in and see if I can get in. So I got Buffalo today. So you know, so drinks on me and let's keep it going. But anyways, yeah. So Tim was just asking, what do I look for when I'm watching a game when it comes to the offensive side of the ball? I said, I don't watch the offense first. I watch and see what the defense doing. So what do I mean by that? And Tim was like, okay, so what are you seeing? I'm saying I look at the secondary, and then I go to the down lineman up front. When I look at the secondary and if I see two safeties, that means, look, you should be able to run the ball when you got two safeties deep because now you're either playing, most teams play over and under defenses. Over means you got three guys to the tight end side because that's over because that means there's three guys tight end. That means a guy's lined up over the nose guard. There's a guy lined up over the outside shade of the guards. So the next to the center, there's a guard, and then there's a tackle. So over deep, and then there's a tight end. So you have guard, you have center, guard, tackle, tight end. That's the strength side. You call formations on defense to the strength. If the tight end's to the right, that means on defense they said that's strong left, strong left. On offense, it's strong right because they're looking at the opposite side.
Yeah.
So on over defense, that means the nose guard is covered. That means that the guard is covered, his outside shoulder, 3 technique. Then you have a guy over the defensive end. He's lined up where the end, between the end and the tackle. So that's an over front. Then you have the linebacker outside where the tight end. So now that's an over front. On the back side of that over is where it's an open end, there's no tight end.
Yeah.
So now you have the nose guard there, the guard, there's no one over the guard, and then there's a guy lined up on the tackle. So when the defense is like that, the offense has said, look, we're running to the bubble. So you don't run to the overside because they got 3 on that side. You run to where you got an extra blocker. So you run to where that guard bubble is because the guard's uncovered. So you run to that part. And so what should happen is the tackle should be able to handle his man, turn him out. The guard and the center, it's called an ace block. They ace up to the wheel linebacker because it's the weak side. Fred is a Mike linebacker, so he's on the strength side where the tight end is. That's the strong side. So he's playing the Mike. So the wheel's backdoor on the bubble side. So that backside guard in the center, they pose an ace up to the wheel backer. So you see the guard and the guard in the center, they go butt to butt, hip to hip, and they boom, come up and they move the one technique. They pose a move this nose guard, push him back, and you push him back into the linebacker. If you push him back three yards back, now the linebacker, he can't go because now the nose guard is in his lap, and now the guard can just come off and ace block up to the linebacker, and so the linebacker can't get through. But if you have a good nose guard and he's able to hit that guard in that center and hold them there at the point, the line of scrimmage, and they can't come off because they're not getting a new line of scrimmage. Now the guard has to turn his shoulder just a little bit in because he can't get pushed, so he can't just come straight up. He's got to turn in. Now that will linebacker, boom, he's got a space. He can hit the hole and cause problems for the running back. That's why I said you got to be butt to butt and cheek to cheek. That guard in the center, some say they keep the outside shoulder free as the guard, and he comes inside with his inside shoulder, and the center and the guard boom, he comes hard to guard right here with the shoulder, and he keeps the outside shoulder free, and he just gets him going, him in the nose, him in the center, gets that one technique up, and then boom, he comes off right onto the wheel linebacker, and that creates a running lane. But if you can't get push at the point of attack, that's why you see Fred sometimes making tackles in the backfield. It's predicated on the nose guard, what he does. The better your nose guard is, that's how your linebackers, a la the Ray Lewis, is always making all those tackles, because you had a guy, Hanada Nodi, could keep him off. Then you had Saragusa, who could keep him off. And so you keep the linebackers clean and let them be able to run downhill. That's how defenses work. Then when I'm talking about the secondary, I'm saying, cool, if you have cover two safeties, if you're throwing the ball, you're saying, look, you want your outside receivers, your X and your Y, X and your Z, to make sure you push and get by, so the safeties have to widen. That's why Kittle is really effective against cover 2, because that's why it's like, hey, diddle, Kittle down the middle, because now if you got both safeties got to play outside, because they got to play halves. Yeah. Cover 2, one has one half, the other has the other half. So now the middle of the field is open, and that's why you see Kittle when he's so deadly, because now he's playing against a linebacker against cover 2. But the biggest thing is, have your receivers, they have to get beat and win on the outside to make the safeties honor the cover 2. Because that leaves the middle of the field. That's why you had a guy, and McCaffrey was so deadly on the middle of the field, because if you had Kittle dragging, now McCaffrey can beat his linebacker in the middle of the field, and now you're like, man, why is he wide open in the middle of the field? Because the coverage dictated what the offense can do. Single high safety, I told Tim, look, when I see cover 1, when I see one safety deep, that means, okay, you got to put that safety in a tough spot, because other safety has to they're bracketing, they're doubling a guy, they're doubling a big time receiver, so they might be double. So that means the safety's free up top. You have a deep 6. You have a deep 6 route. That's where he runs up 15 to 20 yards, and he comes across the middle, and behind that you have a corner. So now the safety has to make a decision. Either he drives down on that crossing 6, that deep 6 that's coming in, that single high safety has to come down, or he's got to get wide with that corner route, that corner route that's going toward that angle. So either the safety's got to drop. So it puts him in a pickle. He can't be right. So if your guys are winning on the route, that's why that drive 6, go boom, boom, either the safety's coming down or he's got to go flow out there, and you have him in a pickle. So that's what I do. I coverage dictate where I look. When I'm watching a game, I look at defense, then I look at the offense, and I'm like, look, if it's running, they should run to the bubble. If it's pass, I'm looking at what the coverage is the defense is giving me.
Well, look, first of all, that's a fantastic breakdown. I do wonder, so number one, that's why Chris Jones is as good as he is. Not only can he get to the quarterback and pass rush, but he's so difficult to move off the line of scrimmage in run defense. And then for the 49ers, and look, one of the reasons we talked about Ricky Pearsall before the break, he's going to be making his debut in this game. He's coming off an injury, obviously the gunshot wound and everything. This guy's an inspirational story. But the reason that he's got to play is because Juwan Jennings is out for this game. So when you talk about those two receivers creating open spaces in the middle for someone like Kittle, what is the impact, you think, for whether it's for Purdy or overall for the 49ers offense of not having that safety blanket in Juwan Jennings?
Yeah, that's tall cotton. What Jennings has been able to do and provide for this offense, especially for Purdy. Purdy now has been to him more than Ayuk. Yeah, because they're he can go up, he's starting to become, when you remember, you got mossed. You just got Randy, because Jennings going up, he can go out and moss it, he can go up and grab it, he can go up high, he can go vertical, he can catch the ball, he's got great tracking. So you're missing a playmaker. Jennings is a phenomenal playmaker that you have to account for Jennings, especially special teams. You have to account for him on third down. He's nickel receivers, usually they're quick and shifty and nifty. You got to realize they put Jennings in time at the slot inside where the nickel. That's usually your fourth corner. Mm-hmm. So when Jennings comes inside in the slot and you got two guys outside because of the speed, now Jennings usually playing against a quicker guy, but Jennings usually has the height advantage, the reach advantage, the wingspan, the jumping ability. So that's a mismatch, and that's why Jennings, I think, has has so much success because you can put him and play him at the X, the Y, the Z, the slot. You can move Giddings all over the place, and he's a problem. He's a problem because of his height and his range, his jumping ability, and his athleticism.
Well, and even though he doesn't have the name or the money attached to his name, I was going to say, it's Ayuk, Debo, Kittle, obviously. He's leading this team in receiving yards. He's leading this wide receiving core in touchdowns. And he's also their leader in total receptions. So when you say they're missing Juwan Jennings, I think a lot of people from afar are saying, well, okay, they're missing their third or fourth receiver. No. Well, so far this season, you're missing your number one. And so that's why, again, I do think there's added pressure on Ayuk, even on Debo Samuel. He, of course, had a big catch and run against Seattle in their win on Thursday last week. But more pressure now is on Brandon Ayuk to become what I think everyone knows he is, which is a number one receiver for the Niners.
Yeah, and for me today, man, because of my running back situation, because you want Jordan Mason to be durable and you want him to stay in it. I still run him 15 to 20 times, but I'm telling you, you have to have Debo in the backfield today. Mm-hmm. Debo is a running back, playing receiver playing running back. He runs physical. He can make guys miss. He runs hard. I think that you take some of the pressure off Mason and you give Debo, I would say 5 to 7 carries from the backfield today. I really mean that. You don't even know running back Guard came in and played well, played great, had a big run.
Yeah,
you don't want Grindle to have that type of pressure on him. So if you can offset that and have Debo come in and run 5 to 7 plays and give Grindle give him 7 to 10 10 carries and Mason takes 30 carries and bring it down to 15 to 20. I think you're good. I really do. I think you're good. I think that's the kind of approach that Shanahan needs to have. And you got to get those guys involved early. You can't just wait and say, okay, I'm going to let them carry the ball, in the second quarter. No, you got to get those guys, Debo, Grindle, you got to get him running the ball, in my opinion, early. You got to give him some touches.
Well, and to your point, Guarendo's a rookie, obviously. There's a lot of rookies playing in this football game for both teams. Dominic Pooney is a starting right guard. He's a rookie. Guarendo got a lot of touches last week because of the injury to Mason. Is a rookie. You look at the defensive side of the ball for the 49ers. Malik Mustafa, a rookie. Jair Brown is a second-year player, but he's still a young. Tatum Bethune, a rookie. For the Chiefs, Xavier Worthy, a rookie. Kingsley Sumataya, their backup tackle and guard, he's a rookie. They have a lot of first-year players that are going to be playing in this football game. But you brought up earlier, I think a really good point, Lo, is that the other guys, the veterans, those are the ones that help the rookies become as effective as they are. And so even though Guarendo might have to play in this game, if someone like Mason and Debo set the tone, well, then his job isn't as hard because he knows exactly what he needs to do. And if someone like Jake Brendel and Banks and McKivitz are able to continue to play well, Dominic Pooney can just be himself. So the 49ers, yes, are going to have to rely on rookies in this football game. Obviously, Ricky Pearsall is making his NFL debut today. But with help from the veterans, that's where the game can be won if they're to beat the Chiefs.
No question. And that's what they got to do. Today, you have to make sure you shut down the run. If you're the 49ers, you're playing a team that haven't been able to run the ball great. They're running back. They might have them all back today, but Kansas City, they haven't been great running the ball. You cannot let Kansas City offense have success running the ball. You got Kareem Hunt, the guy that, got off the street. You have to shut them down running the ball. If you make them one-dimensional and make them have to beat you, and if you say, look, the Kansas City Chiefs, if you said fill in this, the Kansas City Chiefs will have less than what yards rushing today, and I'm saying 60. If you can keep them under 60 yards rushing, and Mahomes and they have to do it by air, I don't think that they win this game. That's going to be huge because you know it and I know it. The Niners have been a sieve against the run at times. They have to shore that up and don't let Kansas City be two-dimensional. You can't let Kansas City Chiefs be two-dimensional, and they don't have their bell cow. You have to slow them down and make them beat you by air. Don't let them keep them under 60 yards rushing, and I think you're going to fare pretty well today.
Well, it's interesting you say that because I think, again, a lot of people will think about the quarterbacks in this game, and those are the guys that are going to be scoring the points for the respective teams. But were the well, let me just ask you this: what do you think is the game where the Chiefs were the closest to getting beaten so far this season?
Well, believe it or not, I think two of them. I think Baltimore could have tied it. I don't think they were necessarily beat. But for me, the Chargers, you have a chance to kick that field goal, and then you're winning, but they knew it was going to take a touchdown. So the Chargers, if you kick that field goal in the fourth quarter with 6 minutes left, you're up by 3. And I think the Chargers in Atlanta, I think those two games, even though Baltimore had a chance to catch that touchdown and they were going to go for 2 to win it, I think the Chargers in Atlanta.
Well, no, I think you're right. I agree with Baltimore and the Chargers. But the point is, the Chargers had the closest run differential in terms of yards to the Chiefs.
Right.
That was a close football game. The Ravens outrushed Kansas City in that football game and had a chance to win at the end. So Atlanta was a little bit closer. But again, the point is that just because there's big names at the quarterback position doesn't mean that these two teams aren't going to emphasize the run. And in fact, whoever wins the rushing battle, I think, is going to win this football game.
I do.
Because the Niners have not been able to, I think, hold teams in check the way that we would like to see them do in regards to the run. Meanwhile, Kansas City's been very good. So if the Niners can beat them where their strength is up front, I think they give themselves a great chance to win this game. And it's kind of, again, just like a stylistic difference, but they need to lean, I think, on Mason.
Yeah.
And I do also think it's funny. Kyle Shanahan will kind of give you an insight as to how big a football game is by how much he uses Debo Samuel at running back.
Yeah.
I don't think this could be a football game where, let's say, God forbid, Mason goes down or gets banged up, is a little bit hampered. Debo Samuel could be the guy getting 10 to 15 carries in this football game.
Oh, without a doubt, Debo touches the ball over 10 today. If you had me go bet, Debo is targeted, going after, touch the ball. He touches it over 10. He's going to be targeted more than that. I totally agree with you. I'm the same church, same pew. It's going to be interesting just to see how they implement him, how they get him going, and they are going to get him going today. It's interesting as I switch gears. It was a party out here, and from 10 o'clock to about I would say 12:30.
Yeah.
And now it's almost turned to the ghost town. Look how quick. No, because people are trying to get in there and get their seats and get into this game. They don't want to miss it. It's crazy just to watch. Usually the streets 20, 30, and 40 minutes, 30 minutes, 10 minutes before the game. It's still people piling in. Today, it's 30, 40 minutes before the game. And it's not. It's turned into a ghost town because people want to be there because this is going to be some fireworks and it's going to be very, very exciting. I can't wait to watch this game. I can't wait to be in this stadium. And I can't wait to after the game with the Niners. I'm going to, I want the Niners to win for some personal reasons. One, because I want to go into Kansas City locker room after the game.
Yeah.
And the reason why I want to go in, I think you guys have both love this. Several weeks ago, I wasn't able to be here. The Chargers made me one of the honorary captains and, and one of the legends. And so it was neat. They let me come out on the field during the game. And it was crazy because the Chargers that was when it was down in the Chargers end zone. They're going in to score with like 5 minutes left. They're on the 2-yard line. So they bring me out in that time. And they get the crowd going. And you know what? So they're on the 2-yard line. You hope they're going to score. And Kansas City just took over on the ball. Just took over. So I'm getting the crowd hyped, and they're talking about me. They got me on the jumbo screen and all this stuff. And I look over, and I'm doing that to the crowd. And Kansas City's in the end zone, their offense. And Kelsey looks over at me, and the crowd's getting frightened. I'm doing that, and he goes, and he gives me gives me the heads up, and so at that moment, I'm thinking that Kelsey's like, yeah, I don't care if you're cheering, but watch, I got you. We're gonna win this game. So I'm thinking that, and then when I wave him up and he goes, he gives me like the shoulder, like what? And I realized, and afterwards I felt like so bad because he was acknowledging, man, that's all. Like he was like,
cool.
That's cool what they're doing for you. I was such in the moment that I was like, man, get out of here. I don't need. You ain't gonna come back and win this game. So I waved him off, and then when I walked off the field, I was like, man, I think he was just trying to give me, like, hey, honor what you did. Respect. Because after I did that, he was like, okay, like, I'm just trying to tell you good job.
Yeah.
So I think so. So after we win today, I want to go in the locker room and say, man, hey, T, man, let me tell you what happened. Because I owe him an apology, and I didn't go to that one because they Chargers lost. So so you gotta you should be pulling for me today before I can go in and make it right, Tim. Make it right.
Well, it's also funny you say that because I do feel like no matter who wins and loses, you can learn a lot from the losing locker room. You know, whether it's a team like the Chiefs or even the 49ers. I think I learned a lot about the state of their team, how they're feeling, and also what just transpired on the field by talking to the team that loses. Because I don't know if it's just the emotional state, thinking about every little last thing that went wrong that they could have done right to get them to the victory. Sometimes the victors, there's just a little bit too much. Well, I don't want to say this, I don't want to say that. But the losing locker room, and of course we hope the Niners win the football game today. But I do feel like there's that side is going to tell you a lot about the opposing team. And again, I just think this is a game. It's an identity game.
Sure.
It's a game where these teams can establish who they are, and we're trying to figure that out. Because even though the Chiefs are 5-0, I still don't know who they are yet. I don't know who the Niners are yet. They've only played 6 games and they're 3-3. I want to find out who they are, and I'm looking forward, ideally, to talking to them about it after the game and hopefully after a win.
Yeah, no question. And right now, we see a chink in the Kansas City Chiefs armor. I can agree with you there. We say that we don't know who the Niners are. We see the Niners have found a way to lose, and they found a way to win. The Chiefs, they look beatable, but they're 6-0. I mean, they're 5-0.
Yeah.
So you know who the Chiefs are. They're winners. They find a way, in spite of. They could have lost. We've seen the Chargers. We've seen Baltimore. We've seen, Atlanta. They could have lost, but they have found a way to reach deep and win. When you've seen the Niners up by double digits, beating the Rams, ending the game, beating, an Arizona team, ending the game, they found a way to lose. Having a chance to win in Minnesota, they found a way to lose. So we have to be realistic and say, yes, Kansas City's beatable, and yes, I think the Niners can beat them. But Kansas City has shown that they find a way when the moment never gets too big, and they find a way to win. That's the difference.
Well, with that, I mean, we've kind of gone over our keys, some of the X's and O's. And when we come back on the other side, we're also going to re-listen to our conversation with Jake Hutchinson, our 49ers insider from earlier. I thought it was a really good conversation, breaking down all the things that he believes are going to lead to victory or to defeat for the San Francisco 49ers as they get set for a 125 kick against the undefeated Kansas City Chiefs. I'll give it to you first, Lorenzo, Neal. What do you think happens in this football game?
Yeah, I think that the Niners stopped the run. And I think this is something like 23, no more than 24 to 17. I really believe the Niners can limit them to 2 touchdowns and a field goal. I don't see them scoring more than 21. I don't see Kansas City scoring more than 21 points. I think the Niners win this one 24-21 at the most.
As much as I would love to pick the 49ers in this football game, I think that where they are at their point in the season, they are not yet as whole as the Chiefs are. And the Chiefs are certainly banged up too. They're missing Isaiah Pacheco. They're missing Rashee Rice. They're missing some big boys on offense. But that defense has given them hell for so long. And this is an offense that isn't even playing near the same level as they were last year when they had McCaffrey and when they were reaching new heights. So I think it's a close football game. I don't think it's one that we're going to look at and say, oh, the Niners are done, they can't compete. In fact, I think even though I believe that the Chiefs will win this football game, I think it will reveal a lot about the character of the 49ers. So overall, I think the Chiefs win this football game 23-20, but I think it's a great game. I think it's competitive, and I think it will tell us a lot about how much the Niners have left.
No, I agree with you, and I agree with you about competitive game. What I disagree is about the team that wins. And here's why, another reason why I believe the Niners win. Because the Niners now are going to be more aggressive. The Niners now know that they don't have a great field goal kicker. They know that special teams is going to be Q. They have to take more chances.
Good point.
That's what the Niners are. That's why I'm predicated. Now, if you had Mooney, I'd be like, I would be more, believe it or not, if they had Mooney, the field goal kicker, I would be like, the Niners probably lose. I think because they have to be more aggressive, because they don't depend, what you guys talked about earlier, they don't depend and they don't have faith in the field goal kicker. You're going to see a more aggressive Kyle Shanahan and a more aggressive offense that the mindset is like, you don't think all week long that they've told this team, we need touchdowns, not field goals. We need scores, not field goals. We got to get in the end zone. We have to be efficient in the red zone. We can't settle for threes because we might not get the threes. We need touchdowns. So that's what makes me say the Niners win, because they have to be more aggressive today.
That's a great point. Well, hopefully we see it. I mean, I hope that we can go talk to the Kansas City Chiefs after this football game, and we learn a lot about them after a 49ers win. On the other side, however, when we come back for the remainder up until kickoff, again, reminder, overtime after the 49ers finish it against the Chiefs, after the final whistle, Mark Grandy, Sterling Bennett, Kyle Madsen will be with you, rocking with you on overtime after the Chiefs and the Niners. But coming up next on the other side, we're going to listen to our conversation with Jake Hutchinson from earlier, our 49ers insider, about what is about to go down, the Super Bowl rematch between the 49ers and the Chiefs. Lowe's on the Niners, I'm on the Chiefs. We'll see who's right and who's wrong. Be back at it next week. But this has been the Kickoff Show, presented by Habas Law. If you've been wronged, Habas Law will fight to make it right. Call 1-800-INJURED or visit habaslaw.com. Big thank you to everybody out here at the Hilton Santa Clara. Feel free to come through next week. It's a party, but everybody's headed inside, so we're going to do so as well. You've been listening to the Kickoff Show live from the Hilton Santa Clara on 95.7 The Game.